Legal backup on that.
Good afternoon, everyone. The Ascension Parish, August the 12th, 2015 Planning and Zoning Commission is now in session. Please rise. Ask that you all join us in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please note that all commissioners are present. Can I get a motion from the floor?
Introduce staff.
Staff introduction, please.
Stacy Webb, Secretary for Planning and Development.
Lindsay Manda, Legal Counsel for Planning and Zoning.
Ricky Compton, Planning and Development Director.
Ben Moran, Planner.
Lance Brock, zoning official.
Rhonda Bro, engineer.
Bob Turner, engineer.
Thank you. At this time, the chairman wishes to acknowledge Councilman Terry Castle and Chris Lohr. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to make this appearance at our meeting.
Doug Sattles.
Is he here too? Yeah, Dr. Stone is here.
Dr. Satterley? Sir. I'd like to acknowledge you. Thank you. Thank you for taking the time. Can I get a motion from the commissioners on the last meeting, minutes of the meeting?
Move for approval.
A second.
It is a motion, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any objection? So noted, unanimously approved. First item on the agenda, consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda as published.
I second that motion.
Considering, no objections? Consent agenda, items A through D are approved at this time. Item 9A, Carlton D. Savoy Properties.
James Falgo representing Mr. Carlton Savoy and Earls and Associates on the following family partition. Some comments were made, addressed, asking the commission for approval.
Staff?
There's a variance being requested on the size of lot B1A1. It doesn't meet the minimum required for family partitions is a half acre, and that it doesn't include any area within the right-of-way, and that red hatched is all within Highway 431's right-of-way. So what you have is 20,250 square feet.
Which is equal to what's required for the zoning on the
It
property.
meets zoning, it doesn't meet family partition.
And it's the exact same size as the lot directly to the south of it.
How short is it? I mean, how close are we
It's
to?
like a thousand square
give or
feet.
take.
Yeah. And I think the line was drawn there just to square up the lot? Is that why it was that particular spot?
Yes, sir, that's the way it is. I mean, we didn't want any
To make
dog
it
legs in the
comply,
property line.
you'd end up with a kind of an irregular shaped lot.
Exactly.
Is that the deal?
Makes it nice and clean this way. And it's the exact same size as the lot directly to the south.
Staff, question I have of you, we discussed this prior to coming in for this session. Would you give us the document, was it 174026, para D?
The following procedures shall be followed for the hardship subdivision of family property, each containing at least 1/2 an acre regardless of zoning classification.
Regardless of zoning.
Now, we had this discussion just prior to this session, so I guess I need to ask for some clarification why we should close our eyes to that directive.
Well, it's the true intention of a family partition. All this property at one time, and it's still all family members that do live on it. So this meets the true intention of the family partition.
And yet it does not meet the minimum requirement. Am I correct?
It's,
Yes, sir.
Minimum requirement is gonna be what, 21,780, something like that?
Right.
does it say half an acre outside of the right-of-way
That's
in the
wrong.
classification?
Not in that piece of the code, and it's in the definition of lot sizes.
I mean, are we in a gray area to where that they actually own fee and title all the way up to the center line of the road, so that can be counted, even though it's still just a right-of-way
The state never came in and bought.
given to the road?
Yeah.
I mean, are we in a gray area with that, or I mean, is it clear cut somewhere that, no, you don't own that, so it cannot be counted?
I mean,
It was never
They own
purchased.
it.
All down
Part of the
431. We're encountering this all down 431 now because of the new right-of-way that's being acquired for the state to make all these turn lanes. The state never came in and actually bought the existing right-of-way, but now they're coming in and buying certain sections of it with leaving the centerpiece still entitled to the boys.
I mean, I don't,
So it's never been purchased.
yeah, I guess I'm asking the
The
question. is
mineral
it-
rights
is-
are still.
Is it clear to what we're even starting off with? I mean, you have a license to uphold, so I mean, from a surveyor standpoint, are we
can't-
starting
I
off
can't-
talking about .589 acres, or are we starting off talking about .589 less than?
I can't, I'm not an attorney, I can't vouch for a title,
Yeah,
but title has never been, in my opinion, transferred over to state. They still title, and they're paying taxes all the way to, they're paying taxes total for the 1.6 acres on the lot,
1.589.
1.589, around 1.6.
Question for staff legal. Under what conditions are we allowed to close our eyes to that directive?
There is a section on hardships that
Yes.
allows you to do that. So in your view, or in your estimation, if it meets those requirements, then you could grant this and say it's a hardship.
And so I'm wondering, what is the hardship?
Is there a
That
hardship?
it's meeting the requirements of the half acre, but there's no classification for exact lake. It's stating that it's
Mr.
outside of the
Chairman.
right of way.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I think we have the prerogative to grant a variance here, and I'll make a motion to grant a variance and approve the family petition.
Uh, I second Mr.
Jafizi's.
There's also, they're using an existing private access servitude, so they need signatures of the
Yes,
current
so-
users of it.
So it'd have to be contingent upon that
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
being signed.
And it's all family members down there
Then
with
I'll
access.
make my motion contingent.
Before we vote on that, I have a question for staff. Is there a practical objection to not having this a point half acre, or are you just trying to strictly follow the family partition?
Following rules.
No, it's not.
Yeah. Whereas the family partition itself is a hardship.
Yeah, and they have
Well, it's a
another
variance of
acre
the-
back there
You have
to,
to have a public hearing anyway, right?
Yes.
So,
Okay. Motion.
Any further questions from the commissioners? This time we'll open the floor for public hearing. Any cards? Anyone like to speak? At this time, we close the floor to public hearing on this matter. No
was
further
premature.
discussion? Can we get a motion from the
Yeah,
commissioners?
sorry, I was premature. I recommend approval of the variance and approval of the family partition contingent upon all existing users of Carlton Place Drive signing the plat.
And I, again, second Mr. Traficci's motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? So noted, the motion to accept is unanimous. Item 9B, Clyde Scheck-Snyder Properties.
Representing the Hernandezes on the following family partition. Comments were made, addressed, corrected on the plat, asking the commission for approval.
Staff,
nothing here. We recommend approval.
comments, commissioners? This time, we open the floor for public hearing. Any comments? Any cards?
Probably for another.
To another matter.
That being said, this time we close the floor for public hearing. Can I get a motion,
Move
please?
to approve.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So noted, unanimous. Item 9C, Margaret Ficklin Estates.
Representing the Ficklin Estate on the following family partition. Comments were made, addressed, corrected on the plat, asking the commission for approval.
Staff comments?
Everything's been addressed, we recommend approval.
Commission comments? This time, open the floor for public hearing. Any cards? Anyone wish to speak? This time, we close the floor for public hearing. Can I get a motion?
I'll move to approve. I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposition? So noted, the motion passes to accept unanimously. 9D, Mike Templey property.
Representing Mike Tomplay on the following family partition, acting for the commission for approval. All current users of John Sutton Road will be signing the plat to the division of property.
Staff comments?
Yeah, there was an omission on the write-up page, but they do need the signatures from the adjacent lot owners that are using the existing family, the existing servitude of passage.
Commissioners' comments? This time, open the floor for public hearing. Any cards? Anyone wish to speak? This time, we close the floor for public hearing. Can I get a motion?
I move that we approve contingent upon the landowners signing the agreement.
Second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. So noted, unanimous acceptance. 9E, John Vernon II properties.
Representing John Vernon on the following family partition, asking commission for approval contingent upon, we had to bring this one before the Board of Adjustments because when we extended the 20-foot to the 30-foot servitude of passage, the existing mobile homes are within the building line, so we will be submitting that to the Board of Adjustments, asking for their approval on the reduction of that building line. Actually, not a reduction, just a variance. If the mobile homes ever get moved, they have to be put back and behind the 25-foot building line.
Staff, your comments, please.
We recommend approval with those variances being granted and with a pre-deal servitude agreement being signed and recorded for the placement of the L turnaround on lot 6B.
Comments from commissioners? This time, we'll open the floor for public hearing. Any cards, any comments? At this time, close the floor to public hearing. Can I get a motion?
But before, owner is okay with the L turnaround?
Yeah.
Okay. I move approval with all the contingencies that he said.
Second.
It's been motion and second. All in favor? Aye. So noted, unanimous approval, acceptance of the motion. 9F, Ruth C. LeBlanc property.
Okay, representing the estate of Ruth LeBlanc, asking for approval on this family partition, the same issue as the first one about the lot, front lot. This was in the estate of the property, and this is the division of everybody's percentages of what they own in the estate. This is the way they recommended dividing the property.
Staff, your comments?
Yeah, the same issue as the first one with that lot out on Germany Road and the right-of-way within it being reduced from the area that counts towards meeting the minimum. If it's part of an estate, I mean, I don't see a problem if he submitted something showing that the property was to be divided this way, but I haven't seen anything.
Wait,
Wouldn't it be
What do you
easy
mean,
just to move the
more?
lines over a little bit and comply then?
But what is that, to go further back?
Yeah, I mean, you're
Well,
not squaring something up this time.
Well, no, the way it's established is you get a certain percentage. So people have to get a certain percentages of the lot. So no matter which way we do it, the person,
And that includes that
this is
servitude
what, yeah,
and the
nobody wants to
percentage?
live all the way in the back. They want to live up in the front. So this
Yeah.
is the best solution to the property. As far as, like, what's the guy's name? Frank, he had, and his percentages was 3.2 acres, and he doesn't plan on living there, but that's his estate, and that's his inheritance.
Who ordered, is that written in the?
Yeah,
in
the
will?
way the will is each, they get percentages like 1/12 of the estate, of the remaining tract of land, stuff like that.
Have the heirs been put in possession of the estate?
Yeah.
So it's already
It's,
been.
it's all one lot right now, and there's 20 owners of it, or this many owners of it. So we're cleaning it all up and family partitioning it out.
I feel like we're still talking about whether or not we're starting off with 5.594 acres or not.
We are. Yeah,
I
and
still
that's
feel
what
like
we're
that's
asking
on
for
the-
variance on that, because
Right.
it does meet the zoning requirements, again.
Correct.
But it's not the family partition, which I didn't see where it says outside of the right of way.
But yeah,
Yeah,
well, yeah, it says regardless of the
the zone,
zoning.
yeah.
Now, what about the non-conforming homes? Are we going to see another map? I said.
Well,
I
the
saw it says
existing
final.
mobile home that's already in that servitude has already been removed off the property. Now, there is another issue with there's somebody built their house over the property line.
So when you sign this
That's-
plat, is it going to show that mobile home not there
Yeah,
anymore?
Yeah.
So the final.
There's a
sign-
note on there that says exist mobile home to be moved. So before you sign off on it, it will be moved, which it already is.
So how
there
about
will
the
be a
house?
revised plat.
With the house on the property.
Right, how's that going to be
But
reconciled?
that's a civil matter.
Is that for us to determine something about that house, or while we're?
I
subdividing
think
piece
the
of
house
property?
is actually the sister of Ruth.
Yeah.
Was that,
Well, who owns the house? Was that in part of the division?
That is the Nellie LeBlanc estate property.
was the house there before the line, or?
The house is old, it's been there for a long
Oh,
time.
okay.
So they drew a line in the middle of a house?
Well, the way things were done back then, it was a bunch of attorneys subdivided property without actually getting it surveyed. So basically, you go out there with a tape measure, and this is where I think my line is, let's put my house.
Shame on you,
And
man.
back there, the rules, mortgage companies, you didn't have mortgage, you built it where you want,
All right.
and now we got an issue,
How are you gonna fix it?
yeah.
Not sure. But is that any of our business when we're approving a family partition?
As I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong, that line that
It's
the
ex-
house crosses exists
It's an
today.
existing line.
If
Right,
that was a new line, we wouldn't allow it. But
Okay,
that
that's what
line
I'm
exists
saying, it's
today,
existing.
and so it's considered an existing non-conforming, and we don't deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
The mobile home is crossing a new line, therefore it needs to be removed prior to the map being signed.
Which it has.
So you're just not going to show it on the map that you signed?
Well, yeah, I will
Okay.
take it off, yeah.
That's it, just those two structures, and then the front argument of .594 acres not being enough, which you would need a variance to move forward on this. Yeah,
Do a public hearing.
Any further comments from commissioners? This time, we'll open the floor for public hearing. Any cards, anyone desires to speak? This time, we close the floor, for public hearing. Can I get a motion?
I'll move for approval on it, with grant that variance that it's less than the 21,780, I believe, that we need.
And I'll second the motion.
It's been motion and second. All in favor? Aye. So noted, unanimous.
Thank you.
Item 10A, public hearing. Oaks on the Bluff, Phase 3.
How y'all doing? My name's Bo Booty. I'm representing Centerline Engineering and Land Surveying. I'm here on behalf of the developer, Coastal Contractors. He's here tonight to also answer any questions. The proposed development is a residential development on approximately 24 acres on the east side of Bluff Road, directly south of Oaks on the Bluff Second Filing. The property is currently zoned medium-intensity residential. Per the major subdivision guidelines, this property is allowed up to 70 residential lots. Of these 70 lots, up to 42 are allowed 50 foot of frontage, while the remaining lots are allowed 60 feet of frontage. Per our preliminary plat, we're only proposing 53 lots of the allowed 70. Also, a majority of the lots range from 70 to 85 feet of frontage. In addition, per the guidelines, we're required 1.1 acres of park area, but are providing an acre and a half. The reasoning behind doing this is the developer currently resides in the Oaks on the Bluff subdivision, and he wanted this new development to either meet or exceed the current development that he resides in. Obviously, he's got an interest in it as well. To go on to Traffic side of it, proposed streets are typical Ascension Parish, 27-foot asphalt with curb and gutter. The proposed right-of-way is through the existing public right-of-way, Vista Drive, which is within Oaks on the Bluff development. A meeting was scheduled with LADOTD to see if we could possibly get an access to Bluff Road. And we met with Chris Ewing, who's the traffic engineer, Keith Mayu, and Chase Justilian, who all handle the traffic. And at that meeting, we were told that no new access would be granted to Bluff Road. And I have an email correspondence that I'm going to bring to y'all as soon as I finish talking. We are also proposing that we understand that construction traffic coming through heavy trucks will have an impact, so we are proposing a construction entrance from Bluff Road, so where these big heavy vehicles don't have to actually come through the existing subdivision. And Chris Ewing has okayed the idea of a construction entrance. On the drainage, per the Ascension Parish drainage regulations, this proposed development was designed so that the 25-year post-developed flow is reduced to the 10-year pre-developed flow. And we are accomplishing that by 2 proposed ponds on this site. And I know the agenda said that we had not yet received the approval of the drainage study. We have since received that approval, and I will bring that up to y'all as well. For the sewer, the proposed sewer tie-in is there's an existing treatment plant tract in the existing Oaks on the Bluff subdivision that is owned by Ascension Wastewater Treatment. We have been in contact with Ascension Wastewater Treatment. We are currently working with them, and we have agreed to upgrade and enhance the current system to account for our additional 53 lots. And I'd be happy to answer any additional questions that y'all may have. And I'll bring these, y'all can, if y'all want to pass.
Is this an email from DOTD, like from one of the guys at DOTD
Yeah,
saying?
this is one of the emails from DOTD,
Okay.
and this is the approval from other drainage impacts.
Okay, great.
What reason did they give you for not allowing another entrance on the bluff?
Their big reasoning, which is, this is also, I didn't make enough copies of this one, and I apologize for that. But if I can read from an email straight from Chris Ewing, says, "Thank you for taking the time to contact me regarding your concerns with Oaks on the Bluff Phase 3. While I have not officially denied a request for an access connection to Bluff Road because an application has not been submitted. However, I did meet with the developer and told him I would discourage a separate drive. In an attempt to minimize drives on Bluff roads, this is referred to as their policy of access management, which in their mind, and then is also correct, it's safety issues. Many more left turns off of Bluff Road causes even more possibilities of accidents. To continue, he explains, access management is a technique used to improve efficiency and safety on roadways. It aims at focusing on the location, spacing, design of entrances, street intersections, median openings, and traffic signals by minimizing conflict points. Conflict points are areas where traffic flow is disrupted or points where motorists crossing, merging, or diverging from a road or driveway may collide with another motorist." And then he attached a link to their website that shows it. He also went on to state that, in fact, the stub out, which I failed to mention that, he actually worked for the engineering firm that designed the first 2 filings of Oaks on the Bluff, so he was very aware of the project. And he states, "In fact, the stub-out roads on the north and south side of Oaks on the Bluff were specifically required by the Ascension Parish Planning Commission to promote access to adjacent properties in anticipation of future development. This is typically an additional attempt to consolidate traffic on collector roads rather than have many access points to arterial roads like Bluff Road." And then he said, "I do recognize the problems associated with construction traffic. For that reason, I have no objection to allowing a construction entrance for the developer to allow heavy equipment to access Bluff Road directly." And I'll only have one copy of this one, but y'all welcome to, I'll bring this up there
I
as
don't know if
well.
y'all need to see. I'll pass around if they want to see.
That concludes your presentation?
Yep, sir.
Staff, have you had the opportunity to see these last documents passed out to us?
Letters from DOTD? The letters from DOTD?
One email from Christopher Ewing and Parish.
I've not
of
seen those.
Ascension. I guess the concern was, as he spoke of traffic, and I note that your concern, one of your two concerns, sewage and traffic. Does anything that is stated here address your concerns?
Essentially, I would support the state's contention to minimize entrances onto arterial roads. The statement that Chris Ewing made about minimizing accidents, I think, is appropriate. This particular subdivision doesn't generate a lot of traffic. I mean, and so really a second entrance to split the traffic or something is not necessarily not necessary.
Okay. Staff, your concerns? You identified two concerns, traffic and sewerage. Ask for your comments, please.
I think based on the information provided, they, it's, like I said, we haven't seen that letter. The concern would be is what is the developer doing for sewage? And once again, they've said they're tying into the plant. I think that's a reasonable solution to minimize discharge points into the parish. The details of that, I'm not sure if they've met with Ascension Wastewater to clarify the expansion of the plants or any of that other business, but that usually comes later in the process. As far as the access management, I'm going to defer to engineering on that issue.
Staff, don't we require a letter from, or a DHH approval letter for sewer extensions and have to go?
Not at this point.
At what point does that come? That's what I was.
Generally, it's
trying to
going to
figure
come
out.
during the construction plan phase when they're at the point of designing.
So you're not going to approve their set of construction plans without a letter from DHH approving their sewer extension?
I think the letter is basically saying that they begin the work. I mean, we're not going to sign a final plat until there's sewer. The letter from
Or construction
DHH.
plans.
What's that?
Or construction plans, right? Or is it not?
As I understand it, and engineering can answer this question, they don't have to have the sewer problem solved before they've started construction. They need to have proved to us that they're working with the sewer provider to have it solved before the final plat's going to be signed.
And they cannot issue a certificate of occupancy until the,
We won't sign a
Final
final plat
Right.
until it's done.
so no matter what, this has to be reconciled before, the sewer issue has to be reconciled before anyone can ever purchase a house in this neighborhood.
It will be reconciled before someone starts building a house.
Right, okay.
I have a question for Bob. If the developer were to build another section below this one, would you still have the same feeling about access management, that development in total would not need a second entrance? I think it really would depend on the size of the development. At some point in time, the amount of traffic that's generated by a new subdivision is going to have an effect on the one entrance to Oaks Bluff and, or to Bluff Road. And so I think that would really depend on the size of the next development.
How many lots are currently in Oaks on the Bluff? In the hundreds or below? Does anyone know? I would hate to sit here and count.
140, sorry,
140.
140.
So plus what?
53.
3? Someone's done the math.
Was it the intention of the developer, when you approached DOTD, was it your intention at the time to have an entrance onto Bluff Road? Is that why you went to them?
At the time, we've actually deferred, because the developer actually lives in the subdivision and was trying to get all these issues resolved prior to coming to the meeting, we've actually deferred twice. Not because of any planning commission, because we've tried to discuss the issues. And so we actually presented a preliminary layout to DOTD, and Actually, residents, the developer invited a couple of residents to attend the meeting, and one of them showed up. And the intention was to find out if we can possibly put another access road and see what we can do. And at that meeting, we were told, basically before the meeting even started, that no, this isn't happening.
But if they would have allowed it, you would have done it?
I can't speak on that right now. At the time, we went there to determine whether or not we can get the access.
And I also have another question about the fact that this is a Phase 3 versus a third filing. It was never part of an overall preliminary plat. I guess to connect this to Oaks on the Bluff, there is more land that they have below here. Is there ever any intention to expand this piece of property past that?
Again, I don't know who's going to buy that piece of property one day. And
Oh, that's not owned by you
That's
guys.
not owned by us. I don't
Okay.
know.
I can't, yeah, it's kind of small here. I couldn't read what it was.
Any further comments from commissioners?
Well,
Well, where-
you asked a
the-
question.
The
I'm sorry.
property that's below that, the way the subdivision looks to be built, that would, I don't know where the line is on that property, but it almost looks like it's completely locked in.
It does.
Unless you build an access out into that property area.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand what you were
So
asking.
it looks to be property right below the proposed subdivision, but there's no access to that property. There's Bluffs Avenue that comes up on the other end, but with the way it looks like this subdivision is proposed, there's no access to that property. So eventually, unless there's some kind of build out there, that would become landlocked, wouldn't it?
Or at least not accessible through this
It would
53
be
lots.
inaccessible for, yeah, unless it's owned by whoever lives at the end of Big Oak Drive.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Mr. Sanjay asked a question that you couldn't answer, but the developer is here, you said, so let's ask him if an entrance from Bluff Road was permitted, would he install the entrance? Yes or no?
Good evening. My name's Devin Overall. I am the developer of the subdivision. And to answer your question, I looked into it from just a feasibility study, and it just didn't make sense for me to pursue this bigger lot, 53 lot subdivision, and bear the additional cost of that additional entrance. So therefore, no, this subdivision does not work if that is built into the project.
So when you presented to DOTD, it wasn't with a plat
I-
that showed an entrance to Bluff Road, it just was with what you
No,
had
it
viewed?
wasn't. It was,
No, sir.
at the time, it was a sketch that was submitted to DOTD showing an entrance to Bluff Road. Because when you set up a meeting with DOTD, you have to give them, preliminary meeting.
Yeah, I'm
You have to
familiar with
You have to
DOTD.
show them what we're trying to, so we submitted a preliminary layout just to show what could we possibly do with the development.
Okay.
To answer the
And
question.
I
So they-
actually went into this with open mind, and I said, okay, I'm willing to bend a little if I'm not trying to make most money. I'm obviously trying to make some money, but if I was truly in it to make the most amount of money, I wouldn't be going after this size of development. And I feel like I've given a lot and, ways to, because I live in the subdivision, I want it to be a good subdivision. That's more of my interest. But when I looked at the finances, to be honest with you, it was too substantial enough of an increase of amount of money for me for this project. With 53 lots, there simply just isn't the money in there to do the bigger lots and the additional costs with the build out for the another entrance. And then to also fall back on a question I believe Matthew had mentioned about the property, there will not be accessibility to any of the neighboring properties. There's no stub out like Phase 2 or Phase 1 Oaks had with Vista. So therefore, there wouldn't be a way for future connectivity to add to additional traffic through the subdivision after this is built, or if it's
Right.
approved.
Good, that answers that.
Any further comments from commissioners? This time, we'll open the floor for public hearing. Any cards, any comments?
Councilwoman Terry Cazzo.
Gentlemen, thank you for having me tonight. That's interesting to look at you from this side of the room. I am going to want to introduce the board members of Oaks on the Bluff. They are here tonight. But first, I want to tell you my personal experience. I live in this subdivision. I live on the street that will be affected most greatly by this traffic. And so I too was concerned about a second access. And I reached out to Dr. Calavoda at DOTD and to Sean Wilson at DOTD, and was assured by both of them that in keeping with Ascension Parish's guidelines to have a subdivision with 2 entrances, that they did not feel that if this developer applied and that he couldn't be granted access to Bluff Road. Chris Ewing, I know, spoke initially that he would not grant that, but he also told me in a phone conversation that he was frequently overruled, and certainly Sean Wilson and Dr. Calavoda have the authority to do that. So I think that might address that he could indeed go to Bluff Road. It would afford an opportunity for this subdivision to have 2 areas of entrance and egress. Our board members are here, and they want to address you, so I won't take any more time. Tony Rhodes, Glenn Hale, Lonnie Gaines, Todd Zirkle, and David Hebert. And I will mention that these men are representative of the 70 to 90% of the vote and when they were elected to the board of directors. So they are certainly appropriately representative of the vast majority of the citizens of the subdivision. Thank you.
David Hebert.
Can y'all hear me okay? First off, I'd like to thank Planning and Zoning for the opportunity to speak here tonight. This is a very kind of emotional subject for those of us who live in Oaks on the Bluff, and we're respectfully asking Planning and Zoning to deny the preliminary plat for several reasons. The first reason being it's presumptuously named Oaks on the Bluff Phase 3 when there's been no approval by our homeowners, property owners, or the board to allow this to be a part of our neighborhood and to be part of our association, to be part of anything. So the name is, on the very front end, just very presumptuous on the part of the developer. The developer has not given us anything in writing from a proposal standpoint, and in fact, from time to time, his position has changed. His position has changed on the entrance, second entrance, 3 times. At the very first meeting where this was discussed, there was going to be no second entrance, according to him. At the second meeting, the one we're talking about, where he brought a resident to the DOTD, basically he basically told us that he had a change of heart, was going to do it, but DOTD wasn't going to allow it, so it was no point. And then, lo and behold, you know, we get approval of DOTD, or them saying they would approve it if we, you know, asked for it, if he asked for it, and he now says he won't do it. So, I mean, it depends on which day you talk to the developer, I guess. The preliminary plat is in conflict with 3 sections of the Ascension Parish subdivision regulations, which I'm not going to cover. We have someone who's going to cover that. We have numerous safety concerns, which are the primary reason for us asking you not to approve the preliminary plat. We have numerous quality of life issues that concern us as well. I mean, those are secondary, but they are genuine. The lack of a second entrance is the primary driver of all these concerns. We too are very concerned about the land to the south of this development, and at least the way I look at the plat, there is an open area between lots that lines up directly with Vista Drive, and that land beyond that could eventually become part of our subdivision, either by this developer or some other developer. And at that point, it's landlocked, and we only have 1 entrance, and we cannot put a second entrance. So that's our primary concern. We are not opposed to development. We're not opposed to working with the developer, but there's got to be some give and take on both ends, and our concerns need to be addressed. We would like to introduce a letter that we drafted on behalf of the board that we sent to Mr. Ricky Compton as part of the record, and parts of that letter are going to be covered by some of the other board members. So I'm just kind of giving you the introduction piece. Are there any questions?
We have the letter.
Okay.
Yeah, we do.
Tommy Gildersleeve. Glenn Hale.
Good evening. Just to echo what David said, we have some major concerns over the safety and mainly over the single entrance we have now. We've had incidents where we've had storms that have come in, and we've got 3 Centennial Oaks that are in the very front of the subdivision, and they're prone to damage by storms. In a couple occasions, we've had to actually cut our way out of the neighborhood. We've had several, I won't say several, but a few crashes in the last few months where those crashes or incidents have blocked the subdivision and people were not able to get in, not able to get out. And we just feel like the additional lots will generate about 150 new vehicles. Again, that's just an estimate because we don't have a traffic study or anything to look at that. There are issues with the sewer. We've had issues in the past with the sewer system where it's not been up to capacity, so that's something that really needs to be looked at very closely. The other thing, in looking at some of the regulations, I mean, part of it speaks about having secondary entrances to neighborhoods. And I think in section 174032, it talks about, that you should have a second entrance to your subdivision. I also talked to DOTD. DOTD indicated to me that the main reason that they limit intersections is to reduce traffic, and that's really a broad statement. I mean, if you have a straight road with no intersections, you don't have to worry about anything. But just as a policy, they try and deter intersections as much as they can. And he also indicated that and that's Chris Ewing also indicated that on many occasions that he's overturned and that intersections are roadways are allowed. The other thing, speaking about the sewer system, you've already brought it up, it's under section 1740-46. And those are the two major concerns that we have. Again, we're not opposed to the new development. It's just really the safety issues that we have. The roads are very narrow coming into the subdivision. It's one-way traffic in, one-way traffic out, and they all merge together. And a second entrance would really alleviate a lot of the concerns that we have. And that's what we're asking you to do. Thank you. You have any questions?
Okay, thank you.
Tony Rhodes. Todd Zirkle.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for allowing me to speak. Appreciate your time. The main point that I want to bring up is that, and one of you mentioned it, the entry into the neighborhood with the planned development would propose a 38% increase in traffic through the neighborhood. So whether the engineer thinks it's higher or doesn't, 38% is 38%. It's a very material increase in the number of vehicles that are going to be coming through the neighborhood. In the last few months, we've had accidents out, near the entrance, and I can tell you that many of us were prohibited from entering the neighborhood through that access point via, state police or whatnot, and so we couldn't get in the neighborhood. So if that's a scenario where you've got fire, you've got police, you've got emergency that need to get in there to help residents, to help children, to protect us, to serve us, that's a problem. And I think that if we've got another point of access, that helps alleviate that. The large oaks that are at the entrance that several of them have mentioned are subject to storm damage. The limbs on these trees are massive, weigh multiple tons, and so those again could prohibit access. If we had another access point to the neighborhood, we're safer. So forcing it also, the development, if you look at the map, it forces all the traffic to the right. So they're all coming around a hairpin turn, right? And then they're all coming around this blind changing grade turn towards Vista. Kids play there all the time. Kids play, they're out there every single day, and that is actually the access point for the common grounds, which is the lake right there. The sidewalk for the lake, for them to access it, comes out exactly where that turn is, where you can't see around it, and there have been accidents there. So I think forcing all the additional traffic around that turn is not advisable, in my opinion. The stub out the proposed plat, well, at least the one that we've seen, as Glenn mentioned, the developer didn't present anything in writing, changed his story to us so many times, changed his position, agreed at one of the meetings with the HOA or at one of the meetings with all the neighborhood folks that cared to attend, to include the entrance. And then the story changed. I guess it was expensive. I mean, I don't say that I agree with his, desire to get you guys to foster his wallet, because it's too expensive to put in an entrance, but it's a safety concern. So, there's good and prudent reason, I think, that any public facility, whether it's a movie theater, a restaurant, or anything else, has multiple points of access. It's not because you can't force all of the people through it. It's because if there is an emergency, the people need to be safe. They need to be able to get in. They need to be able to get out. And I think that the parish was wise in protecting the public interest by adding that to the Ascension Parish subdivision regulations. I really don't see any reason to go against that. So for those reasons, I would ask you to decline. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Brian Haydell.
Did you want to go after that?
I'm here, I'll speak now. I'm Tommy Gildersleeve, representing the Homeowners Association, the Board of Directors. And the point that I would echo is that your subdivision regulations, and I think what you've done in the past, recognize that more than one entrance and exit is a good thing and good planning. And what I think you heard here tonight was the developer say he doesn't want to do it because of financial considerations, but that's new information. As I understand, was related to the residents. The question was, is it allowed, is it not allowed? And now tonight, the story seems to be kind of turning, and it looks to be that it would be allowed, and there's a question about finances. At a minimum, I think you should defer acting on this so that you can consider additional information that you heard tonight. Secondly, I won't tell you how to do your job, but do what I think you should weigh your own regulations of good planning more heavily than the developer's economic interest. That's a separate issue, and you don't have any information on that other than it might not be economically feasible. We don't know whether it is or not, but you really don't have a definitive answer from DOTD on could it be allowed or could it not. You also don't, at least to our knowledge, there's no definitive information on how the developer intends to mitigate or permit building on potential wetlands. The plat we saw indicates some potential wetlands, but obviously you can't develop or build on wetlands unless you've got a permit from the Corps of Engineers. Without that, they could issue a cease and desist order, stop the construction. I don't know where that is. I'm not suggesting the developer hasn't done that, but we see a plat with preliminary wetlands. We don't have any information on whether the Corps has come out and made a jurisdictional determination, whether a permit has been filed, whether there has been mitigation. We don't know where that stands. And also, with respect to the storage, we, as the homeowner association, don't know what stages that are in. I understand that there may have been some informal communication between the developer and AWT, but we have no information on whether or not there's a specific plan to upgrade that plant, whether that plant can handle this capacity. And so that's not so much of an objection as it is a request and a suggestion that you consider those issues. You seek more information on all three, on the wetlands, on the storage, and on the access before you act, because those are important things. And finally, I'll just end with perhaps what's an obvious point. The residents and who are represented through the board are not asking for any favors or special treatment. They just want you to apply your own regulations and good planning. Thank you.
George Kurz.
allowing me to speak. I'm here on behalf of Terrace Land, which owns a 20-acre tract between this property and the interstate. One of the items that has been before us tonight, one of the things that happened was when this subdivision was originally developed, it was developed with multiple stub outs with the idea of connectivity and orderly development of all the properties around and to create a neighborhood and to make it a part of the parish that was something everybody could be proud of. At this point in time, we're now talking about not having an extra entrance, and we're talking about not connecting to other properties. This property is owned by family with family members that are located all over the country, which is why they're not all here in person. But in terms of where this is, they're in a situation that they would like to have access. There are other tracts that would like to have access. And in an orderly growth, it would seem that other properties should be linked together with other stub outs. And if you're looking at traffic planning, that maybe it needs to be an overall growth of the area, not just the growth of one tract of land, and how it's accessed, how it's tied together. At the same time, this adjacent tract of land, it has a pond on a portion of it. It's something that could be used for drainage. There are all kinds of things that could be done in a comprehensive planning effort. So on behalf of the owners, I would like to request that you consider requiring a stub out to adjacent properties to allow the orderly growth of other properties in the immediate area and consider the request of the existing subdivision. Thank you.
Brian Haydale.
Thank you, Board. I'm a resident of the subdivision, a lifelong resident of the parish, and when I first heard about this project, I was very concerned. And I'm concerned because I live at this access point. I live in Lot 93, which is on the corner of Lake Vista and Oak Path Drive. And I bought the house because I like the privacy. I like the land that's undeveloped behind my house. And when I first heard about this project, I was really against it. So I had some discussions with the developer, a lot of our neighbors, and the more I thought about it, I realized that this land's getting developed. Whether the residents like it or not, it's going to be developed. Maybe not by Mr. Overall, but somebody's going to develop this land. So the primary concern was, has all the minimum requirements that the parish is going to impose been met? And if it has, then I'm not sure what can really be done by the residents. You can voice your objections. We would all like to live in a more rural area, but this land is getting developed. Mr. Overall did a very very considerate thing, I believe, by bringing this to the subdivision and getting some insight. He's a resident of the subdivision, and I thought that was much appreciated. However, a lot of my fellow residents sort of didn't feel that way, and it's been very contentious, a lot of emotions, because everybody's property is at issue. I'm in favor of this because I know this is going to happen, if not by him, by someone else. I think the development that he has presented has a lot of good ideas. It's not too large. They're not going to squeeze in 70-plus lots in there. The idea of an access road, it seems sort of advantageous for traffic flow. Traffic's a very important thing, but it's not my money. I don't know the economics behind it. I'm not sure how much it would cost Mr. Overall. I did have an opportunity to sit in with DOTD. And I heard Chris Ewing say, we're not going to grant this. And with all due respect to Ms. Casso and the acting board, whether they can trump him or not, I do not know. If they can, great. But that's really not the issue. The issue is he made some concessions, he went, he explored it, and he was told no, and he shut it down. If anything has changed, I'm unaware of that. Some of the items that the board raised, I'd like to address real briefly. As far as sewer goes, it's my understanding, I'm not an engineer, but that the proposal he has is going to make the sewer system better. Safety is a very big, legitimate concern, but again, I don't believe at the end of the day traffic is that heavy in our subdivision. It's not a large subdivision. I know they offered this letter into the record. I'd like to present an objection. I think the letter is misleading. It talks about representing a majority, and it does not. I think it's quite opposite. It represents a minority. Most of the people I've spoken with, and I would say is a majority, are in favor of this. They're not speaking tonight. But I would like the minutes to reflect an objection to the letter. I think it's a gross misrepresentation by the acting board, and it does not represent the majority. So thank y'all for your time.
Interesting.
I have a question. Mr. Abear said that there were 3 violations of parish ordinance. I didn't hear what those were. I think somebody else was going to talk about those. I'd like to know
Yeah.
what those 3 violations are.
It's not so much a violation as it is subdivision regulations require you to consider wetlands and sewage, and we don't have information on that. So we're not saying that there's a violation. What we're saying is we've not seen, and we don't know if you have any information on what the developer's doing on wetlands and the sewage. And the third issue is the subdivision regulations do say that more than one entrance and exit is desirable. And that's.
It says desirable, but
Well,
doesn't say mandatory,
should.
yeah.
Well, it says, should have more than one entrance and exit. It says the commission shall consider the following factors, and I believe it's factor E, which says the subdivision should have more than one entrance and exit. So should means absent some reason not to, and you haven't heard a reason as to why it can't have a second entrance and exit. You've heard safety concerns. You got one entrance, one exit. You got hurricanes, you've got fire trucks, ambulances can't get in, can't get out, residents can't get in, can't get out. So there's obviously a pinch point where you keep adding more and more lots and you don't have a second access. There's a safety issue there. And so I would say should in this case means, yes, you do need 2 exits, absent some reason why you can't have a second exit, and I think you can.
For the record, let me state something. The gentleman made reference to Uniform Land Code 17-4032 street requirements, and, I have the document with me. Let me state this. It says, and this is 1740-32E, subdivisions should have more than one exit street, preferably on different streets or in different directions. The street network should facilitate the separation of local and through traffic. That's verbatim. That's exactly what it says. And I think the gentleman earlier made reference to this directive, so I did look it up. That's what we're talking about. Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And if I may, one last point, a second exit would facilitate that because you would have the stub out, which provides for traffic among lots in the subdivision, but you would also have 2 access points if there's an emergency, if one's blocked and somebody needs to get in or out. So yes, that's exactly the point that we think applies.
Mr. Chair, thanks to Gasper's glasses, I was able to read the part of the plat. Tied into what is now a stub out on Vista Drive is Track B, which says it is potential right-of-way, which leads me to believe that the developer, as he's doing this, is anticipating some development south of this plot. And he's figuring out that that's how access will be granted, whether it's him or somebody else. So it leads me to believe that there's some thought of additional lots beyond that, and that is the only access would be through Oaks on the Bluff again.
Yes.
Which would add more traffic. So I'm concerned about not having a second entrance if it's already being planned in this one. Now, that being said, the developer may decide it's no longer 50 lots, it's 70 lots to make that.
That's from, right.
Worthwhile, but that's his decision. But I'm just concerned about not having a second access.
Well, I too am concerned, considering what I just read, 17-4032, as the gentleman stated earlier. That's verbatim.
Well, I'm not sure if I was going to have a chance to discuss it again, so I just wanted to your point, when we first submitted the preliminary plat, that track that you see there that says potential right-of-way, that was put to break up the block of lots, which is required by the major subdivision guidelines. When it was submitted, we were requested by Ascension Parish Planning Department to put in parentheses potential future right-of-way. But we've heard the developer say today that he has no intention, or he doesn't want it to be that. We were asked to include that on that tract. So I just wanted to say that, and also just to go through a couple of things. When again, everybody talks about safety, 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 and what's the reason for not having this, another access on Bluff Road? If you read Chris Ewing's email, it's all about safety. It's all about limiting those access points from Bluff Road. Also, they talked about accidents in the subdivision, and while I don't currently obviously live there, the developer did mention to me that every accident that's occurred has occurred at the entrance because people are trying to get in and out of there, and now we're trying to add another one 400, 500 feet down the street from that. So I just wanted to also reiterate that. And it wasn't that the developer changed his mind. He approached the first time we deferred. They said, well, you look into the feasibility of putting another access road to Bluff Road. We prepared the layout. We went to DOTD. We met with Chris Ewing. At that time, he said no. Now, whether somebody knows somebody bigger than I do, I don't, I can't speak to that. But we were told at the time we could not do it.
Was it an official application and an official rejection
Well,
by DOTD?
what you do
was it
is-
him just looking at it and saying, well,
Well,
I'm not going to approve this, so don't even submit it?
You have a preliminary meeting, and then once you have the meeting, they give you their recommendation. After the recommendation, you have to actually submit construction plans to them. So we're not going to design the subdivision if we don't have it approved. We'd have to design the subdivision, show them, and then for them to give us the official denial. But that's why you have the preliminary meeting, so you know their stance on it. And their stance was, at the time, that no access would be allowed. And somebody mentioned something about they didn't have a traffic study. Well, as a requirement of the Ascension Parish, we had a traffic study done and it was submitted. And just real quick, read the conclusions that was from this traffic study is that the conclusion states that upon completion of the development, the Bluff Road approaches are anticipated to operate at a level of service A, which you don't get any better than that, during AM and PM peak periods. The approach on Oak Park Avenue, which is the main road, is anticipated to operate at a level of service C during AM and PM peaks. This is, again, I'm quoting from the report. Level of service C is considered an acceptable level of service, therefore no roadway improvements are recommended. In conclusion, the proposed development will have minimal impacts on Bluff Road. Also, Oak Park Avenue has been determined to have adequate sight distance for both the left and right turn movements exiting the site. So, I mean, the developer he's done his homework, he's tried to work with the neighbors, and again, I want to reiterate, we could have 70 lots, 46 of which can be 50 foot of frontage, and the remaining can be 60 feet. We have 5 lots in our proposed subdivision that are 60 foot, and those are around a turning circle, and all of those square footages are 17,000. So this proposed development is actually, most of the lots exceed the current lot sizes of the existing development. So I just want to, again, reiterate that point. As far as wetlands and sewage, again, I mentioned the sewage earlier. We've been in contact with Ascension Wastewater Treatment. That's something that has to be approved at the construction plan phase. He's already started working on it, but he doesn't have the approval yet because that's something that comes on the construction plan phase. Right. As far as the wetlands, we were able to show the wetlands on the preliminary plat because of the jurisdictional determination. So we know that those are wetlands and we know we have to mitigate them. And again, we are working with a company that is working with the Corps, but they need construction plans. They need to see cross-sections of what we're proposing to do. So we can't officially get the wetlands removed until we have construction plans. And again, that's all stuff that's going to be approved by Ascension Parish prior to construction plan approval. So, and if anybody else has any questions, I'd like to, I can answer.
I have a question for staff. In the packet that was provided to us, on the first line of the recommendation says, while this plat is consistent with all applicable codes and ordinance with regard to major subdivision development, is that the position of the staff, that this meets?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman.
Including.
And that includes the part about the second entrances and wetlands and things of that nature?
Right.
Yes.
I live in Oak Alley Estates, not far from here, actually, not far from that location. It's on 74. We have 173 lots. 172 of them are built out. Matt lives there also, actually. There are 2 entrances. Had there only been one entrance, I would not have bought a house there. frankly. I would hate to think I'd live on one end of that subdivision and have one entrance to go through. Last week, there was an accident in front of entrance number 2 where the entrance I use, that with an ambulance that blocked that roadway. So we went around. It was pretty easy to do. I'd hate to live in a subdivision. Now, after, we have 173 lots. There would be, after this development, something like 196, assuming it stayed at 53 lots. Quite a lot more than we have with one entrance, so I don't think that's a very good idea. One other comment that was made, because I'm involved with our HOA, and so is Matt, the HOA here, whether or not they represent the views of the subdivision, they're elected representatives of the subdivision. As far as I'm concerned, they do. They can raise dues, they can change bylaws, they can, you don't like it, you can vote them out, but as far as I'm concerned, they officially represent the views of the residents of that subdivision. That's all.
I have one question. I think the first gentleman that spoke mentioned the issue, there was no presentation proposal giving the board the opportunity to have any input, discussion, approval. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Because I wasn't on the board when it was first presented.
Again, I'm Glenn Hale. I'm one of the board members. Devin came to us, and he had a plat that he showed us. And look, it was great that he came to us. We had some concerns. Those concerns were relayed to him, and that's the last I heard of it. We had a second meeting that I wasn't at. I was on vacation, so I don't know exactly what happened at that meeting. But yes, he did come to us about, I want to say, a month, 4 weeks prior to our annual meeting, and did present that to us. Just a plat that was preliminary, and then after that, from what I understand, that plat had changed, that I didn't know that at the time. But that's the only thing we've had, and that I saw, and we relayed our concerns to him, told him, look, we have no problems with the development. I think it's a great idea. It's just, the concerns we have is safety, that one entrance, the sewer system, and then as long as the third filing mimicked the same covenants and restrictions that we have now, and that if the developer put in the same, same stuff in the neighborhood as far as, like the fencing, everything that the developer had done in the first 2 phasings, we had asked him to do in his filing. We told him, I said, look, if you put the entrance in, you make sure the sewer is okay, and you do the same thing that the first developer did, I don't think you'll have any problems at all with the neighborhood. And that's how it kind of ended. And after that, like I said, there was a second meeting. Somebody else can talk to that. I wasn't there. So I thought he was going to consider that. And then I found out after I get back, that it wasn't considered, or he decided not to, but he would have to speak to that. And as far as the traffic study, a while ago, the comment I made, I was talking about us when I said 150 cars. That was just a guess. I don't have a traffic study. I don't know if they did one or not. Apparently they did, but that was just an estimate that we used. I want to clarify that. I'm not saying they didn't do it. That's all I've got, unless you have a question.
Is it past practice and procedure, matter of professional ethics, some mandate through your bylaws that they communicate with you as representative for the subdivision before moving on? Considering, it sounds like there's a considerable deviation from what was originally proposed to you. Am I correct?
Let me make sure I understand your question. It was our appreciation, what we were going to do is that when the developer finalized whatever he was going to present to y'all, he was going to give it to us. It was our intention, I believe it was our intention at the time, to present that to the neighborhood, and because there is some dissension. I mean, it's not 100% in favor, 100% against. Majority, we feel like, is against it. But we have no problem sending out that as a vote, but we didn't have, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And that's what the plan was. Okay, will you take these into consideration? If you change them, then because you're using our name, we felt like that, hey, we need to send this to the members. It's a major deal. Let the members decide, vote on it, and instead of us just taking, the 5 of us voting on it. And that's where it was, and the development kept changing, and it's never happened.
And my question, is that past practice and procedure to do it that way as you're defining it? Some changes, you come back, we come to amicable agreement, present it to the board, whatever.
We've never had anything like this before. I believe the board has the power to do, it has wide discretion in what it does, but out of an abundance of caution, we wanted to bring it before the members on something this major. Because we didn't know if we had to endorse it or not, and if we didn't endorse it, could you still use Oaks on the Bluff's name? We didn't know. But since it affected every property owner, we felt it'd be prudent to make sure that we send it out to the general, to the membership, let them vote on it, whatever, either up or down, whether it makes, has any effect or not, I don't know. But that's kind of where we are right now. We're not real sure what he's going to do, other than what we've heard tonight, as far as I know.
I understand.
I'm not sure if I can say one last thing. The preliminary plat that y'all see in front of y'all is dated May 12th. That preliminary plat has not, we were on the agenda for June, and this was submitted to the homeowners association. They looked at it, said, please talk to us. Same preliminary plat. We deferred 2 months while we discussed it with the homeowners. This plat has never changed. This is the same plat that was first presented to them. It is the same plat that as we sit now. With one thing, with one thing.
If I might, I don't want to just get adversational, but the first plat we had was dated a month, I believe it was in April. I'm not sure. I have to look at it. It's at the house. I didn't bring it. But the two plats did change. Now, to what extent, I don't know. The only thing that caught my attention is the lot numbers had changed. Now, they both only had the one entrance. So I don't know what else changed on it. But the original plat that we were given in that meeting is not the same plat that he's presenting today. But I think it is the same plat that he gave us, maybe, that may have been given at the second meeting. I wasn't there. I don't know.
I could clarify that. Okay, I could clear up a lot of these issues apparently because, like Glenn had mentioned, I did come to the homeowners association. I tried to meet with the board. I made multiple attempts. Took about a month or two to happen, but they did finally grant me a meeting. And in just discussing about this, they did take it to a different level of discussion than I was prepared for. However, I think my attitude about the issues they had about fountains and fences and things that I said, you know what, those are all great ideas. I'm totally bored. Why would I want to do anything different? Why would I want to have a different fence or not have a fountain? It's like that's things I totally agree to do. I just didn't think that was something we did now or this level or, something that I had to do. Now, the original layout plot plan, Bo is not the one to submit them to this, so he was speaking what he thought was true based off that May thing, but he and I had been transferring back and forth, just a 56 to 53 lot, maybe change the line here and there. It was the same concept. It was very, very negligible changes, so yes, there were changes, maybe just from printing out copies, keeping them together, handing them out, maybe got some confused, but its principle and everything else has always been there, and this has been posted for a long time. Also, about me misleading or trying to flip-flop on my entrance decision or not, I've spoke for 2 hours in front of the whole homeowner association and answered everybody's questions, and basically what it boiled down to was the entrance. Okay, that's all this is. It's about this entrance. Okay, so I said, you know what, I really didn't have the intentions to put this entrance in, but I'm going to say if it's a negligible amount of cost, what I mean negligible on a 53-lot subdivision was about $50,000 to $60,000. I think that's a large amount of money but I was willing to concede that, okay, to make everybody happy. I had Bo, my engineer, perform a construction estimate, which we came back at about $200,000 additional cost to put that entrance in. It was about $90,000 for streets, $15,000 for utilities, $15,000 for landscape and entryway at best. Plus, you had $60,000 in reduced sales per square foot of lot that I could sell. Total cost was $200,000. So therefore, the additional cost to put this entrance in, to me, just wasn't there on 53 lots. I just couldn't do it. And if I had to do it, which the DOT even has told me, no, you can't do this, then it wouldn't be 53 lots. It just couldn't work. I'd have to build out as many as I could, try to build, but I don't want to do that. I live in this subdivision. I think it'd be awesome to have a big lot, nice houses, and adopt all the homeowners association bylaws, have them take control of this thing. And as far as that little stub out, that was something, again, that you guys may just put that language there, but put a park there. I have no interest in going any further with this. I like the community the way it is. And then lastly, I made that financial information public to someone in this room and spelled it out to them and said that on July 16th. And I have that, but anyways, it's not like I hid any information. I've been very public with everybody. And I feel like this subdivision we've deferred twice at our expense. We've carried the burden of this subdivision to try to make do for everybody. And I'm just feel like the longer this draws out, I don't really see much change. I mean, of course, it's not up to me, but I just feel like we've done our due diligence. We've had months to talk about it. And so that's why we're here presenting this to you guys. Thanks.
Was there, let me ask you a question. Was there any discussion in all of this? The fact that the current Oaks on the Bluff would benefit from that, they talked about the fact that they need a second entrance anyway, that they would benefit. Have they talked at all about them possibly sharing in that cost?
I had mentioned that, but, I mean, how do you say, hey, guys, who wants to throw up $200,000, you know? So I didn't see that as a real alternative. But.
There was a hand from the floor? Yes, sir.
As Mr. Hale had mentioned, the story's changed all the way through. So we were never given the opportunity. We have never received anything from the developer in writing saying, hey, here's what it is. I'll give you the opportunity as a neighborhood maybe to go to the membership, offer an assessment, or do whatever it is to put that in place. It's been very contentious. The story has changed. The plat has changed, the offering of the fence has changed, the offering of the signs, the fountains in the lake to match the ones we have has changed, the entrance changed. That's why we thought the plat changed. It did change, like you said, minimally, but at first it was this, and then we'll draw up new plans to consider the entrance, but as we know, that was a ruse. So we were not given the opportunity to participate in a second entrance.
Are there any further comments? Commissioners? Comments from the floor? Gentleman in the back with his hand up. State your name, please.
My name's Rodney Dotson. I own the property on the south side of this subdivision. I'm not against development. Nobody has contacted me about this. I'm a little unprepared today. There was a meeting scheduled for June 10th, which I received notice on. That was canceled. I never received notice. I just was made aware of this meeting tonight. My objection is the pond in the front. I own the house at 14232 Bluff Road. That would be right in my front yard. The subdivision on the other side has the same type of setup, Ascension Bluffs, and that pond looks horrible. I would hate to have an eyesore like that right next to me. Also, the lot size is 11,900 square feet, which is approximately 1/4 of an acre. I would object to the lot size, desiring bigger lots. And when I applied for an occupancy permit from Ben in the Planning Commission, I was told it was a 1/2 acre lot size on my land, which is right next door, so I'm sure it's the same zoning. That's all I have.
Any further comments from the floor?
Fill out cards so we have their name.
Okay, when you step up, fill out a card, please, as a matter of record, please.
I need a pen.
I just wanted to speak really on behalf of Devin overall. My name's Kane Merritt. I am a resident of Oaks on the Bluff. I did write some notes. I have had conversations with Devin, have been to, for sure, the second meeting that they had. That was an HOA meeting, and then have since followed all of the communications regarding this development. So I'm going to just read and try to stay with underneath my time. And I'm going to be a little redundant. My name's Kane Merrick, a resident of Oaks on the Bluff, and also a heavy highway contractor for 18 years. I'm here to support the interests of the developer, Devin Overall. My overall opinion is that the expansion of our neighborhood is inevitable, and that if I had to choose a contractor to develop it, Devin Overall is an excellent choice. I've known Devin and his family for 18 years. Coastal Bridge, as I know it, and his family's reputation is one of respect and admiration. Devin's father, Mr. Bobby Overall, is a lifetime AGC honoree, and Devin shares a lot of his father's qualities. I'm convinced that Devin has planned this development carefully. I'm also impressed that Devin has shared his concept with Oaks on the Bluff community freely, knowing the risk of giving the POA and our residents the ammunition to shoot his concept down. Here's what I found that was noteworthy. Devin approached the POA and Oaks on the Bluff residents at 3 different meetings. 2, the developer never intended to use Bluff Road as a primary entrance. In fact, it was as proposed by the plat, which he gave a copy to the POA on April 15th with no primary entrance. 3, even though this additional access was an unaccounted for expense, the developer, Devin, still went before DOTD's Chris Ewing to request an access to Bluff Road and was verbally denied. 4, it's not realistic for Mr. Overall to put a written plan for separate access if DOTD previously stated it would be denied. As a former highway contractor, I understand DOTD's policy of minimizing access points along DOTD access. 5, Ms. Terry Casso's meeting with DOTD was kind of delayed in the process with no assurances that DOTD would grant an access to Bluff Road. Therefore, I understand why Devin did not submit a written proposal only to be rejected. 6, I understand the POA's concern about needing more time, but if a developer meets planning and zoning requirements, then that developer should not be delayed through no fault of his own. I thank you for your time. I respectfully request that Devin be allowed to pursue his development, assuming planning and zoning regulations are followed. Thank you.
Any further comments? That being said, at this time,
Go ahead, I'll make comments after you close the hearing.
well, now's the time. We have comments?
One.
Somebody else, yeah.
This is all new to me, so I just walk up there, what do you want?
Step up, identify yourself, fill out a card, please.
This will be real quick. My name is Lou Ryan. I live on Oaks and the Bluffs. I'd be affected quite a bit by this because we just be right passing my house. But if DOT says, hey, this subdivision is going to create so much traffic, the exit on Bluff Road, we're not going to approve it. There's too much traffic. You got to go someplace else. Well, that someplace else is right past our house. It's like was brought up. We got the hairpin curve there, right where the kids enter the common property, our lake, pond, I should say. But it doesn't make sense to me that they're going to say, hey, this is so much traffic going to Bluff Road. What's that going to do to people already living on this one little strip? You're talking about roughly a 4-block strip that's going to, the entire new development. That's all I have to say. I just don't understand how it can affect a major highway and not affect us. Okay? That's all, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jackie, I just want to make a comment about DOTD. I worked for DOTD early in my career for years, and worked with them, or had to work with them over the years. And I can say this, they're like an insurance company. Their first reaction is to reject your claim. You need to, if you really, as a developer, wanted an entrance on Bluff Road, and you put something together and put a good argument for it, they would approve it. Their first reaction is going to be rejection. If this board, HOA board, went to DOTD and said, look, these are our reasons for wanting another entrance over there, we think they're good reasons, and I think they are too, they'd approve it. I just know that they would. Their first reaction at the lowest level is going to be no. So that's common. I don't like this not having a, here's the problem that the HOA and the rest of the subdivision is faced with, though. If you make this developer spend another $200,000, he's going to have to put more lots in here to make his money back. I'm not sure you can do it. I think you probably can, but, so the question is, what would you prefer? Would you prefer a subdivision adjacent to yours with smaller lots? Or would you prefer having no entrance on Bluff Road with the lots the size they are? So it's, I know this has been very contentious, I understand that clearly. There have been a lot of letters and a lot of people that spoke against this, and I'm sorry that you haven't been able to work this out between you. I don't know, I don't see supporting going forward with this without an entrance on Bluff Road. Just from my own experience in my own subdivision, I don't think it's a good idea. Those are my comments.
Well, I'd like to ask the HOA, do you feel like we'd still be in this same position if there was an official denied application on the table from DOTD? I mean, something officially saying they went through the whole process? I believe in the preliminary process that they go through, and they meet with DOTD and they go through the proper steps to see whether or not it's feasible or not. Just, do you think we would still be here with these 54 lots or 53?
I personally believe that the way you ask a question,
Mm-hmm.
the way you ask a question, any attorney in the administration will tell you, is guiding, if you will, the way that the answer is going to be given and delivered, right? So I can come to you guys and I can say, hey, you know, look, guys, this just doesn't look safe. Can we just not do this entrance thing? I appreciate y'all. You know, especially when my family, much to the other gentleman's testament in the letter, has done business with DOTD forever and a day. I'm not saying there's any impropriety, but there's a relationship. And so when we say, hey, this, you know, really doesn't look, well, then maybe it is to say, well, no. But much to your point, if you go in and you fight and you say, hey, look, we really would like this. We think it's going to benefit the neighborhood. We think it's going to alleviate some of these safety concerns. We think that it's going to allow our residents to have access to medical, police, fire in the event that something does happen, which it already has in the last month, several times. I think that they give it due consideration. So I believe with you that, you know, the preliminary process is has some integrity to it if the questions are asked in the right manner and if it's given the right amount of consideration. So.
All right, well, how about a pushback on if they do put this entrance in and it pushes them to build 70 lots? You're still going to be connected, more than likely. I mean, I'm not guaranteeing, but there's a strong possibility that Vista Drive would still happen, and you would have a neighborhood that would have houses that wouldn't necessarily meet your restrictions. Or you guys willing to trade that off?
Being voted in by the neighborhood and contrary to some of the other points that were made, it was by, you know, a majority, and, you know, we're trying to act on their behalf. My personal interest would be, hey, look, I'll cut you a check. I'll pay for part of the entrance. But that's my preference. I can't speak for the neighborhood on that behalf. We haven't polled the neighbors and said, hey, would you be interested in this if we could help offset the cost? I could say that some people have voiced that they wouldn't want to because they don't want to put additional monies into someone's pocket who they feel has misled them on many occasions. But, you know, I personally would be willing to offset that. I don't know how to answer for the neighborhood.
I know, that's tough. It's a tough predicament that you guys are in.
Thank you.
If I might. The scenario you gave with 70 lots, 50 lots, the board doesn't know that. I mean, that would be something that I would push. Again, I'm only one vote on the board. That I would push to go back out to the membership because it's a major thing. If DOTD is not going to allow it, it's a moot point. It's not going to happen. So, I mean, that decision would be made for us, for y'all and for us, if DOTD just refuses to do it. But go back to your other question is, you know, if it's, you can't have your cake and eat it too. That's what we'd like. And I understand that, you know, reality is, okay, you know, we'll give you an interest, but you may have less lots. I mean, more, less size lots. That's something I would strongly encourage the board to kick back to the membership and vote on it. And then we would have a better.
As far as your HOA goes.
As far as HOA, yeah, exactly. Yes. I mean, I can't, I would not sit here and make that decision.
But we're asking the developer to stop his progress to wait for that to happen. When would that happen?
When would it? Just as soon as we could.
Yeah.
Lindsay, if staff told us that this development meets all the current regulations, but if we felt that the overriding concern was the should have a second entrance, does that give us enough leeway?
Talked about this last time, and there's that new case that said every development is going to increase traffic. So you can't just use traffic as a blanket health, safety, and welfare concern. You have to have some demonstrable evidence. We have a letter from DOTD saying they would probably deny the second entrance. So that's the evidence we have to go on. We don't have anything else at this point.
Traffic impact study.
Right.
We do have that.
Right, but that's a level service A and a level service C.
It's not failing.
Correct. So
Okay,
whatever.
but we don't have
require if it
we don't
meets
have
the
an
requirement.
official, we have an email, but we don't have an official.
But
Well, they
that's
never
typically,
submitted.
that's typically not done at our preliminary phase. I
Right.
mean, you can ask
Okay.
Ricky, but I don't.
May I say you do have comment, though, from residents who
And I think it's important to understand that the entrance we're talking about is actually about 150 feet wide. It actually has two roads. It's separated with the oak median. So the odds of both actual entrances having debris or something obstructing entrance is very minimal. This is a huge entrance,
Yeah.
and there will be access. You know, granted, a act of God. But, and then the other thing was, they were aware of the alternative if there was an entrance put in. I made that very clear at my very first meeting, and it was actually perceived the wrong way as a threat. And it wasn't, I didn't know how to present it in any other way. I didn't mean it as a threat, it just simply meant it as a fact. And they got really upset, and I guess how it was interpreted, but they've been aware of the alternatives. And I think everyone just wants to have their cake and eat it too. And so, but again, going to the DOTD and doing all those things, that's a state highway. And they told me no, you know, and I'm trying to meet parish requirements, and I felt we've done that.
I was just going to make the point that the record before you does include comments, so you have competing evidence. You've got,
Today comments, we had
you've got an email, and you've got comments from residents, concerned residents, so you can, I believe you can weigh those.
Well, if our council says we can.
I'm not saying they have no weight, but then you have an engineering report, and then you have an email from a DOTD engineer. And so I would give them a lot more weight than, you know.
I'm not disagreeing.
than
I'm
my
just saying
opinion
you
about
can weigh
traffic.
whatever-
My
you can
opinion
weigh
about
it however
traffic
you
may
see
be very
fit.
strong, but I don't have the background, you know, to be able to tell you exactly what it is. So.
Okay.
And I say that's within your discretion. That's what you're here for, to weigh all of the evidence before you and decide what makes the most sense. That's my only point.
Look, we deal with developers a lot here, I mean, every month. We're dealing with developers, and we've heard this often, and I know it's true. You put an entrance in the front here on Bluff Road, you lose a lot, at least a lot.
Yeah, maybe two.
You have, and it costs you. And the cost of $200,000 you mentioned, I think, had to do with losing a lot or some acreage, and the cost of the road and utilities, et cetera. And, yeah, that's a trade-off. So you'd have to, but you can make that up. You can put more lots in, and you can, why would you want to do this if it's going to, you've already been through all this contention. Why would you want to do this and have everybody ticked off at you in Oak Alley Estate, in Oaks on the Bluff? I don't get why you'd want to do that. Why not change this, put your entrance on Bluff Road, DOTD will approve it, reorganize your lots, and make everybody happy. And you make the same amount of money. Oh, you know, tell me where I'm wrong about it.
Would reorganizing the lots?
I think the problem,
Up the
with all
density.
due respect, Asper, the problem that we have on that is, we have a subdivision plat right here that our staff is telling us meets the code.
I get that,
Meets
Matt.
to
I'm
the
not
code.
saying
Let me-
he's
let me-
obligated to
well,
do
I just-
that.
let me say what I want to say on this. I agree that I think it makes sense to have two entrances. We have two entrances in our subdivision. I like it. But I don't know what DOTD is going to do. I know what they've said is that we're not going to approve it. Well, we can't assume that they're going to go back on that. I would feel very uncomfortable assuming that, because I don't know how DOTD works. I know what they've said, and that's what we go on. And the problem is that we have we have to look at the organized planning of this, But the organized planning is set forth in the Land Development Code, which is made by the council. We don't get to make that. We don't get to legislate that. If we sit there and say, well, we think that a second entrance is good, and we want a second entrance, I don't know if DOTD will accept that or not. What I think that it could do is subject all of us to say, well, what basis do you have? I don't have any basis to make that statement, other than my own common logic. And we're held to, on these types of decisions, we're held to a very strict scrutiny standard. Does it meet the law? If it meets the law, or it's presumptively, if it's within the zoning codes, it's presumptive that it's valid. So we have to have a very compelling state interest as to why to deny it. And that compelling state interest is in this code, any violation of this code. And the staff is saying, well, there is no violation. So I don't know that we have any, I've listened to all this, and I'm very compelled by it, and I'm quite frankly glad that we don't have these issues in our subdivision, because my preference would be to deny it and to say, no, go build a second entrance. But I think our legal obligation is to approve it, because it's his land, he bought it, and he has a right to develop it within the bounds of the law, which we're told he's doing. So I think that's the problem that we face on this council.
I don't disagree with
And
you,
I think
Matt.
it's a problem at the
I'm
engineering.
trying to create a situation where we can keep the peace. I just can't, why would the developer want to go forward with this and have such contentious relationship with the rest of Oaks on the Bluff? Number one.
He could sell his house next week.
Pardon me?
He could sell his house next week.
Yeah, he could.
But I mean, it might come at the cost of upping the density to 70 lots, and I mean, that might be vinyl siding
Look,
houses or
I'm not,
something that's.
I'm not saying that we should require anything. Matt, you're absolutely right. They meet all the requirements. My suggestion is redo this with an entrance, redo your lot size, and go back to DOTD and make everyone happy. This should have been done before now. There should have been a formal application. All we know from DOTD is an informal discussion and an email. We're told, I believe from having worked with them, if you submit something here and present an argument for doing it, they will approve it. That's all I'm suggesting.
Lindsay, I hate to put you on the spot again. As Matt was speaking, you were nodding. Does that mean you agree wholeheartedly with what he says?
I do. Yes.
Thank you.
And if I can make just one comment, there's a total of almost 200 lots affected, and the thing would cost $200,000. It's 50 or so lots in the new development, 150 in the older one. I'm doing some math here. If the existing HOA would assess themselves $1,000 a lot, would you put an entrance in?
Interesting.
That's presuming that everyone wants to do that.
Yeah, that's
And
what I'm saying.
and that's also putting future burden on people who haven't even bought a house yet.
Right.
And that would have to be done beforehand. And
It's like an impact fee.
Yeah, and it would
correct,
give
but
everybody
these people
the
don't have a
advantage
house to
of.
pay the
Yeah.
due to put, the road will be in long before they even buy a house.
But everybody will have the advantage
So
of
you-
two entrances.
And we talk about traffic, okay.
Wait,
This is
could you-
53 lots.
Could you answer his question? Yes or no? If they came up with $150,000, would you build an entrance if you could? Yes or no?
They can build it without him.
I'd have to honestly consider that. I can't answer that this time.
Okay.
But at 53 lots, it's 106 cars. They figure two cars a house. In a 2-hour period, that's 120 minutes. We're talking less than 1 car a minute during peak hour.
Impact, you mean?
Impact, less than
Okay.
one. Think about it. It's 106 cars, 53 lots. In a 2-hour peak period, that's less than 1 car a minute. No one has ever waited to get out of our subdivision. There's no line. There's never been. I live in the subdivision, so I can speak on that behalf. Okay? This is such a minimal addition to the subdivision. It's not even comparable. I mean, the total lot is going to be under 200 lots. There's many subdivisions that have far more lots with one entrance than this. This is such a blown out of proportion, issue in my mind, but of course, that's just my opinion. But
Yes.
just put it in perspective.
Let's assume there are no further different issues and comments. That being said, close the floor to public hearing. Can I get a motion?
I'll move to accept the plat reluctantly, but I don't think we have a choice on it. I'll move to approve the plat.
It's been motioned to accept. Can I
I'll
get a
second that
second on the
motion.
motion?
I'll second the motion for approval.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Reluctantly, aye.
Objections?
No, I object.
One objection. So noted, the commissioners have voted to accept the proposal with one objection. Item 10B, Hidden Farms.
Take a 5-minute break.
Attention, everyone. Considering the number of people in traffic and transition, we'd like to take a 5-minute break till the room is cleared. And the bathroom break.
That's what I thought you would need.
Come on, I got it. Be diplomatic.
We got a seat for you, right?
Hey, bud. Yeah. Hey, come here.
Can we bring order to the room, please? Before we proceed on with next business, it's been brought to my attention, our legal advisor, Ms. Lindsay Manda. This is her last session with us, and I'd like to acknowledge that and thank her for her expertise, keeping us on track. And we're going to miss working with you. Thank you so much. The next item, 10B, would be Hidden Farms.
Good evening. My name is Ross Bruce. I'm here tonight as the applicant for the proposed development. My company's Danton Bruce Development. We are the proposed developer. I'm here tonight with my business partner, Brian Danton. I also have our civil engineer, Jeff Cook, and our traffic engineer, Nick Ferlito, is here as well. If I may, I'd like to start out by telling you a little bit about our proposed subdivision. Hidden Farms will be a residential medium-intensity subdivision of 142 home sites and built out in 2 phases, roughly 71 lots each. The code allows us to do 158 lots on this property. The proposed development's on 52.7 acres, and our density is roughly 2.69 units per acre. Lot widths will range from 50 to 70 feet in width. We have designed a buffer of green space and 2 detention ponds on the perimeter of the property, and we feel this design has utilized the developable land in order to minimize the impact of our neighbors and the surrounding area. Regarding traffic, we access the property off of Brown Road, off of Jefferson Highway to Brown Road. A traffic study has been completed and approved, stating that Brown Road has the capacity for the project. I'd like to point out that we have no proposed connection to Broussard Road, and our roads, our neighborhood roads, will be asphalt curb and gutter. Regarding drainage, we have worked with Rhonda, and we have completed and submitted our drainage study. She has given us comments, and we have resubmitted the drainage study, and I'm being told that we're very close, but we have not yet received final approval, so of course, any approvals we understand would be contingent on an approved drainage study. I can tell you, the project will have no negative impact on stormwater in the area. Regarding sewer, we currently are willing to coordinate efforts with the parish to tie in to a proposed regional collection system and treatment plant. I know that was mentioned as a possibility. We're certainly willing to work with the parish regarding that. We also, there's a nearby sewer treatment plant at the end of Brown Jr. I understand it's an older system. We are willing to upgrade that system and work with the parish if that's the direction the parish would so choose. And if neither one of those are possibilities, we are going to install our own sewer treatment plant as a last resort. Finally, we would like to say that as a result of a few concerns from neighborhood residents and some of the planning staff's recommendation, we are proposing to contribute an impact fee of $750 per lot to be paid at the signing of each final plat. For, two-phase, we'll pay for 71 lots of the final plat of our first phase and then 71 lots of the second phase. Also, as stated in the staff recommendation, this plan is consistent with all applicable codes and ordinance for the parish for major subdivision development. We appreciate your consideration in approving this project and be happy that myself or my team to answer any questions or concerns you may have.
Was something specifically earmarked for the $750 per lot contribution? Was there something specifically that was going to be done with that?
No, sir. No, sir. We felt like, we're personally, Brian and I have not done development in Ascension Parish. We have wanted to develop here for a long time, have never been presented the proper opportunity. We certainly understand that new development does have an impact on infrastructure, and we feel we plugged in impact fees from the very beginning of our pro forma and felt that it's the right thing to do.
Right.
And the parish is, of course, can do whatever they see fit with the money.
You're willing to take the money?
Well, no, I appreciate your comments on that, because I think if we ever do adopt impact fees, the fees per lot might be somewhat higher than the 750. So good time to develop and, and plan to put impact fees in. I'm sure that we can find some way to make use of that, either from traffic or wastewater or some other means.
Yes, sir.
So thanks.
So there's no output onto John Broussard Road?
I'm sorry. I couldn't-
There's no output onto John Broussard Road?
Correct. Currently, there is no connection to John Broussard.
And your traffic study did not show that you needed to do any improvements to Brown Road, like a turn lane, right turn lane or anything on the traffic impact study?
Could I address that as
Mr. Bob?
parish traffic? Brown Road itself is capable of handling the additional traffic.
Okay.
It does double the traffic on Brown Road. The traffic's relatively low on it, and this development will double the traffic, but it still will operate at about a level of service C or B or C on the road itself. The real issue, I think, maybe is at the intersection of Brown Road and 73.
Right.
At that intersection, the PM peak traffic that turns into and out of the neighborhood will go from a level of service C to a D. And I had asked them to look at possibility of adding a turn lane on Brown Road for 73 to see if that would bring it back up to a level of service C. They did that. It only made a difference of about a reduction of 4 to 5 seconds of delay. It stayed at a level of service D.
Wow.
So that's where we're
So the
at.
diligence was done on that part to at least look into the turn lanes?
Yes, yes. Had it raised it up to
Now-
back to a level of C, I would have felt comfortable saying,
Now, the turn lane that
Build
we're
the turn
talking
lane.
about, that's southbound on 73 to take a left on the Brown Road? That
no,
was the
that's
one that-
from Brown Road going in and out into PM.
Okay, how about along Highway 73 itself?
73
You looked at that or
itself
no?
really wasn't sufficiently affected by it. Now,
Well, I guess your
I-
impact study shows that.
and this gentleman probably can answer it in more detail.
Nick Ferlito with Neil Schaefer, we performed the traffic impact study. I think Bob's initial statement, he mentioned that the traffic entering off of 73 and exiting off of Brown Road experienced an increase of delay. But it's actually just the exiting traffic on Brown Road on the 73 that experienced the increase in delay.
Okay.
So left turn volume coming off of 73 into the subdivision, that delay remained unchanged from existing.
Okay.
And I would like to add that, he mentioned that the traffic doubled from the existing. He did note that it is a minimum volume road. For instance, the existing traffic exiting during the AM peak is anywhere from 50 to 60 vehicles during that AM peak. And, we'd be adding about 100 vehicles to that peak during the AM.
Okay.
And then the PM, it's about 114, 115 during the PM peak, entering and exiting, and that'd be about doubled in the PM peak.
Which would put it at a level service.
The roadway itself would still operate except a level of service.
Okay.
It's the delay exiting the subdivision that would experience that increase.
Okay.
And when you do the right turn lane, it's still about a 5.6 second increase.
Okay.
Staff comments, any further?
What he said was correct. Essentially, that's what the traffic study showed. I looked at it extremely careful. I tried to determine if there was an improvement that would raise that movement back up to a level of service C, and I really couldn't warrant something that would do it. If they built a turn lane, we'd still be operating level service D.
I also saw that staff had spoken about the energy servitude, that we would need a letter of no objection from energy about some lots encroaching on the servitude. Have we addressed?
Yes, sir. We actually have been working on that, and the gentleman that we initially contacted had been reassigned and was no longer handling that for energy, so that's why we don't have it tonight. But we understand that it would be a condition of approval.
And if they objected, you would simply just pull your lots in? You'd have the square footage it looks like to pull your lots in?
Yes, I do believe we have the room to do that.
Okay.
I have a question about the $750 impact fee. How would that actually, I'm asking Ricky, they would write a check to parish government and the approvals will be held up until that check was submitted? How will that work?
My supposition would be that it would be handled similar to how this body handled the Pelican Crossing roundabout concept, is they would present a contract to the Planning Commission through my office that says, we promise to do this, and when that first final plat is signed, when it comes back to this body, I would assume it would come with a check. And that check would come with the contract that is signed, and it would say, we intend for these dollars to be used within this area. We don't want these dollars to be spent in Donaldsonville or Sandoval. Put the dollars where the project is. And so that check would come in, and we would, in my world, earmark it towards a project within the immediate vicinity of this. And in my world, that's the intersection of Brown Road and Highway 73, is the parish continue to monitor that intersection, and if it gets so bad that, hey, why don't we go in and start doing the work on putting in those turn lanes?
You would have it funded then, huh? Okay.
Funded or partially funded?
Partially funded, probably, yeah.
Mr.
So Bob,
Sargent?
you didn't find any other area that could be improved with the,
I was trying to think of some other item that would be beneficial at the intersection, but it really isn't anything. The turn lane itself, putting in a left turn lane on Brown Road onto 73 would free up the existing lane to be a right turn lane onto 73. And that would improve the service of the intersection, but it wouldn't bring it back up to level service C.
might still be something to consider.
It would help, but I think the question comes down to how much do you spend and what do you get for it?
Right.
I couldn't see we got an improvement in the intersection operation.
Thanks, Bob.
Mr. Sanjay, I can say that our experience in other municipalities regarding the actual exchange of funds is we do not get our final plat signed back from you guys until we present the check and it's cleared. So that's how it works other places. So that's our commitment, is we're expecting to do that.
We're learning about impact fees, so we're new to this.
We are.
No further comments from staff, commissioners. This time, we'd like to open the floor for public hearing. Any cards? Anyone desires to speak?
Karen Trishelle.
Hot dog.
This is an open letter I'd like to read into the minutes. It's directed to Danton Bruce Development, Louisiana Land Engineering, copied to Parish of Ascension. Regarding Hidden Farms, the objections to your proposed subdivision that you will hear tonight will be many and various. There are many valid reasons that this plan is unsuitable for our existing neighborhood. Reasons ranging from demographics, crime rate, sanitation, inadequate roads, and lack of traffic controls and so on. I'll let my neighbors address those issues, though we do concur. What we intend to address tonight is the subject of ownership and right-of-way in regards to Brown Road Extension. Brown Road Extension is not a public road, but a private driveway. Ours. This property is owned by Arthur Smith and ourselves. Our property line can be clearly seen running down the center in their plans. The area belonging to us comprises a paved area approximately 250 feet long and 11 feet wide, attached to our driveway, adjacent to our house, barn, and acreage. The front gate of the proposed subdivision is at the end of a road that Danton Bruce Development does not presently own and will not gain sole control of through the land purchase being negotiated with Arthur Smith. We have not been approached for our consent for its use, and given the nature of this proposal and its many inadequacies, our permission would not be granted. This is our notice to the aforementioned respondents that it is our intention to enforce our property rights. If any phase of the proposed plan, Hidden Farms, is approved, we will be obtaining an injunction prohibiting the use of Brown Road Extension for construction vehicles of every description, including transport of materials. The unauthorized use of Brown Road Extension will be regarded as trespassing. And being that the road in question is inadequate to such usage and would almost certainly sustain damage if used by heavy equipment, possibly criminal trespass. Should the developers choose to bring their equipment and material into the proposed site in some other manner and later move to annex our property, our portion of Brown Road, by process of eminent domain, be advised that this may be regarded as conspiracy to defraud. As the parish is aware of the issue of ownership, they may be regarded as being complicit. This is our little piece of the American dream. You may not drive 300-plus vehicles through what is literally our front yard every morning and evening. We are saying no. Thank you for your time and consideration. Kyle and Karen Trishelle. I apologize for the tone.
Once for apology.
Any?
Staff?
A copy of the plan? Oh, of the letter, absolutely. I brought copies.
Will some staff comment in regard to that letter there? Is there an issue of ownership?
I can't speak
Your time's up.
specifically to the issue. We have a road list that the Department of Public Work gives us when a project comes forward, and Brown Road, as well as the Brown Road Extension, are both on the road list as public roads. If the parish has done any work within said right-of-way, and I believe that there's asphalt almost to the end, that is construed as work, and that's probably why it's on this list as a public road.
We came home from work one day and our road had been taken away, and then you put another one down. That doesn't mean we gave you our road.
I guess my concern is this a valid issue here of ownership? In fact, is this land owned by someone else other than the parish?
I see a 20-foot
or the
dimension.
developer?
I will say this, you heard Mr. Falgout discuss, was it Highway 431 earlier, one of the highways. It's very common for landowners to own to the center line of a road.
Yes.
But when the parish asphalts it and maintains it, there is a tacit dedication. It's dedicated for public use. So that's probably what happened here. Now, if they can dispute that, and that would be a legal issue, but I'm guessing if it's on the road list, that the parish council probably formally accepted it along with maintaining it. So we would say that's a formal dedication and a tacit dedication. So it would be a parish road, even if they own the road bed. It still can be used by the public. That's an explanation of.
20.39
Is
foot
this a
dimension. on here.
quasi-eminent domain issue?
On occasion, if the parish will expand a road, we will expropriate, that's the term I use instead of eminent domain, but we'll expropriate, and typically, we don't go to the courts. We'll have the property appraised and allow the owner to have the property appraised, and we'll come up with a fair price and pay the owner. But I don't think that's, I don't know the specific facts of this case, but I don't see that would be,
Is this an issue that this body can decide?
no,
No.
no.
We can let,
No, I had a project in Livingston Parish, very similar, that was a dead-end, well, similar in this respect. It was a dead-end road that had been a private road, but it was maintained by the parish for X number of years, and it was considered a public road. But that didn't mean, that wasn't the end of that discussion. There was, on the council in Livingston, a lot of discussion about whether that was a private road or not, or public road or not. So I think it's, still a question, good question, yeah.
Any further comments? Any additional cards?
Yes.
We'll just have a rebuttal time.
Yeah.
I'd like to show you the property, where it goes.
Wait till
Can you
after all
put-
the
The
comments.
road is contained within
Okay.
Wait
that
till after all the
20-foot
comments.
he's
strip.
engineer on it.
That goes to the extension of Brown Road, which is a public road.
With any further cards on this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, let's get through the cards first.
Kyle Trishell,
Can I go a little better?
Any other cards?
Billy Goodwin,
A legitimate concern to the development of another high-density subdivision in North Ascension relates to the maintenance of the sewer treatment systems that will be necessary to accommodate 142 new homes on only 40 acres. The history of the sewer systems in Ascension Parish is filled with non-compliance, fines, and health hazards. The proposed subdivision sewer treatment location, being so close to Bayou Man Shack, needs to operate flawlessly in order to prevent sewer waste and fecal matter from entering the bayous, waterways, and eventually the river basin. This could lead to contamination of the Amite River and also lead to pathogens in the water and possibly parasitic amoebas. Water outlet of the proposed plant will overload during high rainfall events. It will, as almost every plant in the parish, when the treatment process is bypassed, untreated water contaminates the water table, aquifers, and surface water. This could contaminate drinking water as well. DEQ has proposed a regionalization plan of the Ascension Parish interconnection of the sewer plants. This is a far-fetched idea that will cost taxpayers an estimated $756 million. It will not happen in our lifetime. Parish sewer costing hundreds of thousands of dollars to build is donated or sold by the developer to management companies for $1. How is something worth so much when it's sold in such a short time be worth so little? Who will maintain ownership of the subdivision sewer treatment plant? Both service and management companies that currently run sewer systems in the parish are very inadequate and have a track record of not keeping these systems up to compliance or to code, less than flawless. When the system is checked by DEQ, they are out of compliance, costing taxpayers thousands of dollars in EPA and DEQ fines. There were 17 violations found by DEQ in January of 2015 alone in Ascension Parish. Untreated contaminated water is a violation of DEQ and EPA codes and is set up for our protection from out-of-town developers who leave a mess for everyone else to clean up. The sewer systems have no redundant systems or backup systems, no power plants. That during a hurricane, when our resources are stretched thin, would send raw sewer into a closed drain, possibly building up of sewer gas and result in an explosion. This will cost existing homeowners and current residents how much expense we have to bear for the parish's growing pains. Furthermore, in regards to the flooding, rainwater will not absorb on rooftops and streets. 142 subdivisions and a cow pasture would affect the existing floodplain. How much would that cost residents in existing areas? We have mostly rural area. The development of this land needs to be smart. This plan is not. Thank you.
Any further cards?
Celeste Goodwin,
Good evening. My stuff is not quite as exciting. Within the past 12 months, tax dollars were spent to resurface Brown Road as a part of one of the parish projects. I believe there was 20-some-odd roads in the parish. Here we are 4 months after the last piece of equipment was removed, and the center striping that was previously on the road has not been replaced. There's not an adequate shoulder that provides safety for cars using the road at posted speeds. The approach of an oncoming school bus or other large vehicle requires nearly stopping in order to safely maneuver past each other. As a resident, there is a sincere safety concern for impending traffic accidents and collateral damage to houses, cars, and people. The addition of several hundred more residents in this already infrastructure-lacking area will only increase the risk and concern to hazardous proportions. The Federal Highway Administration conducted a 2012 study which found that 54% of all road fatalities are on rural roads. This newly surfaced road would be damaged in large proportions by the cement delivery trucks, which would cause additional wasted tax dollars to fix. This does not seem like a wise use of my tax dollars. The bridge on Brown Road could in no way safely or legally accommodate the weight and number of large vehicles that would be required to build 142 homes. The current posted weight is approximately 5 tons. One cement truck weighs over 60,000 pounds. Typically, you need a minimum of 4 to 5 trucks per house to build a new construction. Each truck is over the weight limit by over 57,000 pounds. A bridge failure would put the existing 200 to 300 residents, myself being one, in peril. This is a great concern for emergency personnel, including police, fire, and ambulance services that would not be able to reach the sick or the elderly. The pains of northern Ascension Parish are at dangerous levels when it comes to traffic, drainage, and schools. These issues need to be addressed and fixed before new neighborhoods or commercial ventures are approved in this area. If not, the parish government is setting themselves and the residents up for disaster. What looks good on paper is not always what works in real life. Thank you.
Linda Ezranek.
My name is Linda Ezernak. I live at the end of Brown Road. Most of what Celeste has presented tonight was most of what I wanted to present it. I do have a couple of other things I do want to add. Whenever one of your meetings, and I don't know where I'm at, on May the 13th, there were 8 subdivisions that were up for consideration, and 24 subdivisions were already under construction, approved by this board. Now, the question is, does a traffic study that all these subdivisions present to the board, do they include the subdivisions traffic that is going to be on our roads in the next few months, in the next year? Or are they taking the traffic studies of what is currently on the road today? You know, we have 24 subdivisions under construction. And 4 of those subdivisions currently have been approved in the past 6 months. So they don't even have the first house on them. So how can a traffic study be done in consideration of all these new subdivisions being built? We've gone from a C to a D. If you add just one more subdivision close to my area, we get out on Jefferson Highway. When I go to Airline Highway on Jefferson, I sit through 5 red lights during peak time. Early in the morning, trying to get to work, it's unreal trying to get to work. You got the Henry Road coming out. And then you go in the opposite direction to go to Bluff Road. Well, you've got to turn there at Winn-Dixie on Highway 429. And if you're making a left-hand turn, you've got 10 to 15 cars behind you because you've got to wait for the traffic coming south on Jefferson Highway. So at what point are you going to say, we need to fix our infrastructure, we need to fix the sanitation, we need to take care of the people of Ascension Parish? And we have 12,000 cars crossing, going to Baton Rouge on Bayou Manchac. Now, you add 4 more subdivisions, and then you take on another 24 subdivisions. What are you going to do with all this traffic? Thank you. I appreciate it. But I hope sincerely you consider denying this property.
Betsy Plaisance.
Good evening. My name is Betsy Plaisance. I've been a resident of Brown Road for over 40 years. My husband and I are resident of Parish, lifetime residents. I have a question I'd like to ask Mr. Butler, but it's changed my whole speech and some of the stuff I've heard here today. We live here in this subdivision. I do not know how they can say that we don't have much traffic and how it doesn't impact us. The road itself is 18 and a half feet to 19 and a half feet wide. The new road that has been put up, as Celeste said, it's cracking, it has dysfunction in it. 2 buses cannot pass side by side. One has to stop for the other to pass. I have a picture, if y'all would like to see it. It's of a tree line for about 2/10 of this section. There's no way you can get 2 big vehicles on it. We have 2 subdivisions, we have farmland, we have acreage. The one subdivision is Hope Villa Estates, formerly trailer land. It has over 300 lots by itself. It is supposed to be one-family dwellings. Okay, that's 300 vehicles minimum. If 2 vehicles, that's 600 vehicles minimum. All right, we have Mobile Home Estates, which is 16 lots. They're 100 by 200 feet. Most of them are single-family dwellings. Most of them have 2 to 3 vehicles. We have acreage lots, which are approximately 8 at 150 by 300 feet. They're building more in that area. We have a few homes that have built in that area, and some more are beginning to come. So that's another 16 times 2. 8 times 2. And then we also have farmland, and we have other acreage property. Now, I don't know how they figure we don't have a lot of traffic. It's just like the speed limit is 25 down the road. And people come through there in the afternoons especially, trying to find a place to get off of Jefferson Highway to exit. There's nowhere to go, and they're going 50 miles an hour. And believe me, I do yell for them to stop when I'm outside, and my neighbors laugh at me. But, I don't fault the people for wanting to sell their property, but I do fault the fact that a lot of contractors come in and try to get by with things, and I know that the board, but y'all look very diligent at things, and I know the planning commission people look at things. And I want to say that according to this, that they have rejected the master plan at this time because it does not consist with, they have rejected the proposal. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Donald Plaisance.
Good evening. My name is Donald Plaisance. I live on Brown Road in Prairieville. Most of the stuff that was said tonight covers what I have to say, but I'm going to say it anyway. It's short. When you turn on Brown Road, there's a bridge about 2/10 of a mile. If that bridge breaks from all the extra traffic, especially the heavy concrete and dump trucks, there's no other way to enter or exit Brown Road. There are lots of elderly people who live on and around Brown Road. With extra traffic, it would take ambulances, EMS, and fire trucks longer to get to these people. A minute or 2 can save a person's life. Fire trucks have a hard time getting in and out. Can you imagine adding another 300-plus vehicles? It would be worse. Please take all these people's comments into consideration before you make your decision, because after all, we have to live with it. Thank y'all.
Thank
you. Kyle Chichelle.
Just real quick, one thing that wasn't touched on. I know they do the drainage studies. I've been living back there my whole life, and over the past 4 years, I've seen a hard rain go from just disappear to now covers up half my field. And I don't see how you can take a cow pasture that does absorb water, add 2 ponds that once they're full, the water still has to go somewhere, and claim that it's not going to affect the drainage at all. My only point, thank you.
Lane, and I don't know how to say your last name. Oh. Like R.
Thank you. I'm talking on both Hidden Farms and the Meadows at Oak Grove. We have lived in Oak Grove Estate for 30 years. We watched our children grow. We watched our neighbors' children grow and develop into successful adults, largely to where we live or where we used to live. Stacking houses upon houses like Legos, when the infrastructure in our parish is not adequate, is distressing. Subdivisions are being built around us and will be occupied before the road structure catches up. You almost feel that you're risking your life on 42 and 73. You have to pick your hours to shop, do errands, and schedule appointments. Turning off 73 onto Oakland is scary. From the south, traffic is on your bumper. The turn is more than just a gradual turn. It goes into a curve, and then you have to turn back. And as you do that, you almost have to come to a stop, and traffic can be right on you. If there's someone coming out of Oakland, it is even more horrendous. The surrounding area where we now live and have for 30 years, to my knowledge, was zoned as rural. That had a lot to do with where we built and why we built our homes. Why has that changed? Are there discussions with school officials about the impact of the influx of all the subdivisions that are being built? 300 to 400 new houses approximately in our area alone. Does the parish charge an impact fee to developers? If not, why not? I'm rather amazed by the gentleman that offered an impact fee of $750 per lot, I believe, and the council not certain what to do with it. I don't think that traffic studies amount to much. Common sense does. Long-term planning, thought, research is of course required to handle parish growth. As importantly, there is a requirement for compassion, understanding of the heartfelt concerns of those who are adversely affected by this growth. Thank you.
Thank you.
Doug Hillingsbeck.
Good evening, gentlemen. I'm Doug Hillingsbeck, and I live at 18061 Cully Broussard Road in Prairieville. Been a resident of Prairieville since 1981. And I previously served on the council 2004 to 2007, and prior to that, I was a school board member from 1994 until 2003, and then I left and went to the council. And during my term, we did discuss impact fees, and we tried to pass impact fees, and it was defeated. At the time, it was an $1,850 impact fee, and it was defeated by a vote of 5 to 6. And the way it was going to be collected and applied was the east side of the parish was split up into districts and zones, and the money collected in that zone would be spent on infrastructure in that district. I know the question's been asked tonight, is this development consistent with the codes and ordinances? And I think our planning department said yes, right? Okay, and it has. The question that wasn't asked tonight, was not asked, is what is the staff's planning department recommendation? And that's in your packet. All of you have a copy of it. And I don't like doing this because a lot of you are my friends. But I'll give you and the public here tonight what the staff's recommendation was. And they said, yeah, it is consistent with the current ordinances and codes in place that the council has not addressed. But they go on and they recommend that this development not be approved, okay, because of lack of infrastructure in place. Now, the question I have for Mr. Neil Schaefer, who did the traffic study, is there's 3 ways that you can do a traffic study. The easiest way that has the least amount of effect, and it usually is approved at one of these meetings, and it's used by developers, and it's used by these people that do these studies, is they usually do either a traffic study based on the parish's guidelines or DOTD's guidelines. However, if they do an area analysis, that is the most stringent, and that has, it's very hard then to pass and get a development approved. Is my time up?
Yes.
Oh, I guess you all are happy. Anyway, I'd just like for Mr. Schaefer to go on record as to what type of study, how did he come to that arrival? And I'd also like to say that if you look up in Wikipedia, and it talks about these studies and what have you, you can find these definitions and you can get to the bottom of all this real quick. And I just want to go on record and say that I hope that y'all will deny this development, turn it down. We cannot continue this. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any further comments? State your name, fill out a card, please.
There's no cards up here, actually. Devin Graham. I know what y'all going through. I'll do a little volunteer work on that side, too. Lived in Trailland. I'm gonna call it Hoville Estates. I'm proud of that hell of a place, I could say that, I guess. There's 192 lots back there. There's not that many people. I own 2 lots. My mom owns 2 lots. You know, we don't like living close to each other. I mean, my mom's my worst neighbor. But what we do have is when I went to high school and school in general, Ms. Beats sitting back here, they moved a house. That bridge is 16 feet wide, mobile home's 15 foot. They moved an actual house, they clogged it up. We drove through somebody's cow pasture to get to the neighborhood. Got kicked out their cow pasture, actually. The sheriff tried to arrest my mom, I think. Gentlemen, I'm not against development. I own a construction company. I do real estate, electrical contractor. But I'm not against development. I've watched those cows that Mr. William Brown had. Mr. John Nodden was a good friend of mine, beautiful horses on that property. I watched him put all the hay on that property for 22 years. I always knew it was going to be something built there. I'm okay with it. What I'm not okay with is if you watch any Board of Adjustments meeting, you got to connect. I think I differ than a lot of people in here. I don't believe in one-way neighborhoods. I don't believe that Maplewood and all that shouldn't connect to Welsh Gully. If you don't connect, you're not a community. We're not Baton Rouge. We're a nice little area, according to the paper anyway. We're supposed to be neighbors. I don't talk to my neighbors. I don't know anybody on Welsh Gully anymore because I'm not in school. I think we should connect. What they should do, Mr. William Brown once upon a time owned access to John Broussard. I know people don't want connection to John Broussard, but we should have a safety outlet right there. Not every day, because that way, I know, gentlemen, that way, if something does happen to that bridge, there are a lot of elderly people in there. We have a way in and out of that place. Not, just like y'all did the Bullion Crossing. Y'all do the same thing to Bullion Crossing, put a gate, but if somebody needs to get there, somebody can get there. That bridge has been there for 22 years. And as far as the road goes, you're right, we just spent money. I talked to Chris via email a lot, first time he ever saw me, but I emailed the crap out of him. I liked when we got our new road. I disliked that we're getting trucks down it. I do electrical work. Go in any new neighborhood, Keystone we can start with, but we can go all the way to Pelican Point. Those curbs, Oak Alley, those curbs are falling apart because those trucks are weighing down that bed. So I'm not opposed to it. I just want to find another way, a hope, that take that 750 and let's get a way out. Get us to 42. Shake Snyder's are developing that, Oaks at Meadow Grove, get us an access that way. Thank you.
Comment.
G-R-O-U-N-D?
No, Graham, like a cracker.
Oh.
Any further cards?
That's what I remember, right?
H-M?
H-A-M.
I don't know if they could reach it.
Thank you so much.
Any further cards, comments?
Right here.
Developer response.
Step up.
Might be.
Thank you, this will be brief. Do you want to address this traffic issue first?
That's fine.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'll let Neil address traffic.
My name's Nick Ferlito. I wished I was Neil Schaefer. I probably wouldn't be standing here. But as far as the study limits or the type of study that we did for this, it did follow the Ascension Parish Traffic Impact Policy. And that policy is set up to look at different types of studies depending on that size of development. How many trips is that site generating? And so that's how we base our scope for our study. So it was not a comprehensive study area. It was a limited study area due to the number of trips being generated. Thank you.
Thanks for clarifying.
Gentlemen, we do not operate in a bubble, and our approach, and it's pretty consistent, we have 9 projects going on. We have approximately 700 lots in development through Louisiana. We understand these real-life issues, and we both live in subdivisions that have similar issues. So this is the reason why we're proposing or volunteering to pay an impact fee. We are not naive to think there weren't issues before we proposed this project, and this impact fee may not take care of every single one of them. We understand that. We want to do everything possible to minimize our impact in terms of traffic, sewer, stormwater. We certainly are meeting every requirement that the parish has placed upon us. And the only commitment further we can make besides the $750 is that we're open to speak to any neighbor, work with any neighbor, work with the parish, and do what's required and do whatever else we can. The bridge certainly is beyond our property lines. It's under the parish road. Don't know the capacity of the bridge. I certainly, believe me, I will look into that, as well as I think some of the parish officials should. We want to reiterate, though, that the property is currently zoned RM, medium intensity residential. We are meeting all the requirements. So we would encourage you, despite the staff recommendation for denial, if you read the denial, the recommendation for denial, it says that we do meet everything, and then they go into speaking about broader general issues that are parish-wide. And it goes back to why we believe an impact fee is appropriate for this project. So we would hopefully that you would consider approval of this project. Thank you.
I have a question.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, mine's kind of quick. About the access to John Broussard Road. Had you guys looked at doing that at all? Your property appears to have that 50-foot servitude of passage.
We have, the property we're buying has a finger of approximately 250 foot, and it's 20 foot wide that goes to the end of Brown Road.
Yeah, I saw that on the Brown Road end, right. Yeah, that's 20.39, that's not 40 foot of right-of-way. How are y'all addressing that?
We,
How are you going to get there?
I'm not sure.
You're not sure?
It's,
Okay.
this is an issue that,
Maybe our,
The road is completely contained within that 20 feet, the existing road, and it has been overlaid to the end of that road
okay.
in the last 3 months.
Is it on the parish road list? I think that's a
Yes, it
big,
is on the parish
and they give
road.
you a length, I believe, from the intersection.
I'm not sure if we got a link, but they did just recently overlay that road within that 20 feet, and that road is completely contained within that 20 feet, which they own, to the Brown Road extension.
They
There is
being
an
the
existing subdivision or servitude of access that was approved in 2008 that allowed access through that 20 feet, and then there's a private servitude access behind it. That's a recorded map.
So from you guys.
yeah, and I
Research.
appreciate the concern. I do think, it was stated earlier, I think this may be beyond the scope. This is a legal issue, and you know, I think it's in my best interest not to say too much on that issue. If it becomes, that's what courts are there for. You know, we don't want by any means to go to court, but it's, in my opinion, an issue not for tonight.
Right. That's not our job to decide whether or not you're following that. It's our job to make sure you're following within the code. But my initial question was about the John Broussard access. If you guys had looked into trying to maintain or trying to attain access from the back.
We did.
Okay.
We did, and our meetings with parish officials and the staff indicated, strongly indicated that there was a majority of residents in the area that were opposed to that idea, and that's, and that's why it was dead cut at that, you know.
I mean, we
ended
just
at
pushed
the
for
point.
2 entrances on another neighborhood, and here we are pushing for.
Pushing for one.
Not doing 2 entrances on another. I mean, it's trying to
You can never win.
figure out where to land and where to win, exactly. I'm trying to understand. Okay, well, Gasper, I believe
Well,
I
actually,
kinda
that was my
interrupted you.
question. Are you taking the position that Brown Road into your proposed development is a public road and you have access to it? And that is a legal matter which you really can't address right now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. That was my question. Only other comment I wanted to make was that several of you mentioned a pet peeve of mine, and that is that every subdivision that comes up has no significant impact on transportation or traffic in Ascension Parish, and we know better than that. And I've been pushing for some time for us to do a more comprehensive study. We can't get every developer to study the entire parish when a development is proposed, so right now, our guidance is that we study the impact, the incremental impact of each development, and generally we show no significant impact. You add them all up, and you're right, whoever made that comment before, it's an impact to the whole parish, as we know. We failed as a parish to pass a transportation tax a couple of years ago. We are working on an impact fee, which for transportation, which I think would help, maybe not solve all the problems, but help. And so I appreciate that developers' willingness to pay an impact fee. I think, as I mentioned earlier, the impact fee we'll propose is probably going to be twice that much or more, maybe 3 times as much. So there are impacts. And I think it is kind of funny that we have this impact fee pot. Let's say that it's over $100,000 from all these lots that we don't know what we're going to do with yet. And figure that out, right? Well, if we had an impact fee parish-wide, we'd have districts, as Mr. Hillenbeck, I think, or someone else mentioned, we'd have districts, and we'd have plans within those districts. We don't have that yet. So the best we can do is I guess, what we're doing. But I am sensitive to the fact that we don't do a very good job, I think, of looking at the 24 subdivisions someone else mentioned that are and the several subdivisions that are under construction now, looking at them as a whole. and the overall impact. I don't think we do a very good job of that.
Lindsay, I'm going to call on you again, since you're escaping next week.
Yeah.
A lot of people are talking about all of the development we have. The staff has talked about it, lack of infrastructure. Who has the authority to place a moratorium on development in this parish?
The parish council.
Okay.
That's what it's going to take.
Yeah.
I asked that question for a reason. Moratorium is not to us. It's to the elected officials. So if there's a hue and cry from the citizens to stop development, it's not here. It's to the people you elected.
Until we address some infrastructure problems.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
the
as
fact-
Gasper
I'm glad you
said,
asked that.
you were asked to pass the Transportation Act, and the citizens of this parish said no. And then every time we have a meeting, people complain about traffic. You know, at some point, we're going to have to pay the piper. You know, it's just, we're an attractive parish. Donald built great schools, and that causes people to come. So actually, he's the person that you can blame for everything.
Sorry, you got thrown under the bus right there.
That's right. So I asked that question for a reason, so that you understood.
Yeah, and Mr. Burgess makes a good point. Although the staff cannot recommend approval because it's inconsistent with the parish master plan, unless the parish council elects to have a moratorium on development here, that's not a position we can take. If you meet all the requirements and everything's consistent with our codes and ordinances, in spite of our difficulties with infrastructure now, we can't take the position that, draw the line right now and say, well, no more development until we fix our infrastructure.
Same issue we had with the last.
It is, right, it is.
We can be very reluctant, but we're not given much leeway.
Very
I mean,
well
right-
said.
Oh, yeah, and the comment about, the issue about the bridge, that's an important issue. I agree with that. You can't, if the bridge is a certain rating, you're going to have to deal with that, live with that.
Yeah, I would hope the
And
parish,
if it's not,
I'd hope the parish checks it out before
Yeah.
construction starts to make sure that it's in that
Yeah.
kind of shape. I mean,
I don't know what you can do, Bob, but I think that's an important one to go look at.
it's an
Yeah,
older bridge.
I don't know if $106,000 can build a new Wasky Bridge. I don't think so. But that's an important issue. You're going to have a hard time getting in there and getting access to that property through there unless you have some other construction access as the previous developer proposed.
Small trucks,
Yeah.
wheelbarrows.
Any further comments? That gentleman right there has had his hand up for quite some time. Stand up, sir.
Yeah, don't think we
His front door.
How you doing? I'm Keelan Ezernak. If you look at your plat, my house is the last house on the left, Brown Road. As far as being impacted, well, you know how I feel about it. But did this traffic study include Oak Grove primary?
Say again?
Did the traffic study include Oak Grove primary?
I can answer that. The traffic study that I received from Neil Schaefer focused on the 73 Brown Road intersection itself, the movements in and out of that intersection. It did not go down 73 at all, so it didn't look at any other areas. Now, that's not to say there may not be a problem down there. In fact, I think we all experience severe traffic problems around schools, especially when they're letting in and taking out. This doesn't add to that. It doesn't make it go away either. So that will still do it.
If you go to Oak Grove primary in the mornings, when school starts, it backs up all the way past Brown Road to Winn-Dixie. You can't get out Brown Road. So you're gonna have 142 lots, plus trailer land, plus, the whole 9 yards. So, and as far as the bridge, it's a 5-ton bridge. The sign's right there in front of it. Now, Washington State had a study on bridges. Now, you can, the integrity of the bridge, you can have a moving weight, a static weight. A moving, they're gonna, engineer can say, well, it's just a moving weight. But you got concrete trucks, a lot of them come in with 9, 10 yards. That's over 70,000 pounds. You got 18-wheelers gonna be going through there. If the next 2 or 3 years, the integrity of that bridge is gonna be weakened. You're not gonna see it until it's too late.
Gentleman back there. I'm trying to acknowledge those who have not had the opportunity to speak as opposed to those who will speak and speak and speak again.
Okay, my name's Dempsey Pendarvis, and I've been in this parish my whole life. I hear the same thing over and over, and I'm here talking for this development and the last development. I hear the same, you only know what you know, and if you don't really know any better, it's easy for somebody to put ideas in your head and you believe something's going on. You know, I've been down Brown Road, I've hauled hay down there, and those hay trucks came out there weigh way more than 5 tons. The garbage trucks weigh as much as a cement truck. I personally delivered dirt down that road at 88,000 pounds. You know, so the bridge issue is not even really an issue. You know, I go in there with a tractor trailer truck with a triaxle. It weighs 88, and it might weigh 108, but it's heavy. All right? They talk about the sewer deal. That's all addressed with Department of Health and you know, the DHH. Well, I bet the water coming out of those sewer plants is way more pure than the water coming out of those home plants. And when you're talking about traffic down the road, traffic here and all that, that's always a trump card. I live on 44 out by the cabin. You pull out of my driveway at 6 o'clock in the morning, the traffic's backed up 2 miles, and not one house, one vehicle is going in and out the subdivision. It's plant traffic. I got a friend of mine who lives on Highway 70, almost in Pankerville down there. We all know that Assumption Parish population has declined. They have traffic problems. We have traffic problems. We're going to have them whether we have houses or not. So we just soon collect the revenue of the taxes and the income to help fix the problems. You know, I look at these people that own this property. This is their life savings. This is their whole life. They're not developers. They're working people that have saved their land and been part of their family deal, their inheritance down. And I commend y'all for I sit through the last hearing, and I said, you know, this is the best counsel I have ever heard. And look like to me, y'all deal on the rules and the laws that are in place now, and not what we want to make and not what we're going to make, or that we say we've got some pie in the sky somewhere else, and let's just use that for a reason. So I appreciate y'all's concern and anything you can, you know, the consideration of these people. Look like they've done all the due diligence, did all the homework, and if 10 cars can go down the road, 20 cars can go down the road. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Again, I reach out to anyone new who's not had the opportunity to speak.
Mr. Sadley has not.
Mr. Sadley?
Good evening, Commission. I apologize for not filling out a card. I'm Councilman Doc Sadley, District 4. I have no skin in this game. Obviously, this is Ms. Cazzo, who's already spoken to you, and Mr. Lohr's concerned in their 2 districts respectively. That said, I watched, interestingly, the last decision, and I'm watching it tonight, and while I'm not sure what exactly going to decide this time, I just feel compelled to tell you I'm very concerned. Commissioners, you have discretionary authority. I would ask that each and every one of you put that first and foremost in your minds, because things are fixing to get, as you already know, a little bit difficult, be maybe the best way to describe it, with this issue now that's on all of our plates, impact fees. As a council, myself included, and this is no threat, I appreciate each and every one of you, but we did appoint you, but we did so for you to give us advice, for you to make recommendations to us. And I do think you're doing a great job, and I appreciate what's been happening. However, I'm a little bit concerned when we're sitting here tonight and I hear 2 different commissioners, maybe it's an exaggeration to say throw the council under the bus, and also the planning department head individual also used the parish council in saying, you know, we deny until the parish council essentially gets off their derrieres and do something. It's just not so. Under discretionary authority, and when I had capital planning Capital Region Planning Commission training, and I hope most of y'all have, there was a slide, I remember, that the trainer gave, and it had 6 reasons that parish planning and zoning commissions can turn down subdivision development. I won't go through the 5 that don't apply tonight, but I will direct your attention to the Supreme Court decision of Golden versus Romampo, which stated that lack of infrastructure can be a reason, which will rarely survive the courts if challenged, to turn down a subdivision. Now, I'm not telling you to turn this down, but I'm telling you the master plan, as the planning department has told you, says that we don't have enough infrastructure. Even though all the I's have been dotted and all the T's, as you have correctly stated, all of y'all, T's have been crossed in terms of the Land Development Code. Commissioners, again, I just put it in front of your mind. You have discretionary authority. Tough task. I don't envy you it. Had to do it. Remember, I sat in your seat just 3.5 short years ago. But we keep it developing, grow for the sake of growth. I, on the other hand, believe in infrastructure-guided growth, responsible growth, or as the master plan calls it, managed growth. Thank you guys for listening, and I believe my time is up.
Again, I reach Councilman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members of the board. I appreciate your willingness to serve on a very difficult board, and you have a lot of difficult decisions, especially on nights like tonight where you have tough choices to make. I have comments I signed up earlier for the next item on the agenda, which I'll get more specific on. But in hearing the comments and the undercurrent, of course, of all of this is about how we control the growth, how we actually have studies showing the traffic impact as it really is. And that is, I think, the biggest issue. Impact fees, of course. And I'll go on record saying I am pro-impact fees. I'm looking forward to the subcommittee finishing up its work on that, getting it to us. As you heard before, the prior council tried to pass it. They couldn't do it. I can tell you, as being a chairman, we haven't had the support either. It takes 2/3. But I am going to do everything I possibly can for as long as I'm around to push that issue to the forefront and get that done. I think that will help. I appreciate, at least in this instance, the developer being willing to do something voluntarily. That makes it a little bit better to swallow. It's still, of course, a huge impact. I sit in that traffic every day, just like everybody else. I've been living in that area for 16 years, and our infrastructure can't take it. So we've got to get serious about the traffic studies that mean something. I don't know what that's going to take. I know administration's working on something. I know the subcommittee for impact fees is working on something. But those 2 things are the core of the issue that I think can make a difference, help us at least stop the bleeding and get things closer to where they need to be. I appreciate the opportunity to address you. Thanks.
Thank you, Council.
Any further comments from anyone who's has not had the opportunity to address this commission, sir?
Evening. I'm Arthur Smith. Living in Ascension Parish for the past 40 years, traffic has just become part of living in Ascension Parish. And the reason is because of all the jobs that we have brought here. You bring the jobs, people have to have a place to stay. And that's the reason you have these subdivisions coming up. The traffic's going to have to be dealt with. But that's just part of living in Ascension Parish nowadays. They talked about Brown Road, the end of the extension. I think if you're going to check into it, you're going to find out most of Brown Road was donated by the Browns. At one time, years ago, they owned all of that property. I think when it's going to be checked into, you're going to find that out. And they talked about the school and different places, different things affecting the traffic. Yeah, it affects the traffic. But the school was put there, and that's just something you have to deal with. But once again, like I say, the traffic is just part of living in Ascension Parish, and that's because we got all the jobs here and we got the plants here. And those people have to have a place to live. And that's, like somebody said before, we just want to sell a piece of property and have that subdivision there, and those people have a place to live. Thank you.
subdivisions are selling out as soon as they build them.
Any further comments? Sir.
My name's Dustin Cornett. I'm not even here for this issue, but I just would like to address, I think, it's Gasper's comment and also Dempsey's. I don't think anybody could have foresaw the growth that was coming to Ascension Parish as much as it was, but we all knew it was going to grow. So when we don't have the infrastructure, don't throw it back in our face that we didn't approve a tax, because a tax isn't the solution for everything. Just like we live off of a budget, we expect y'all and our council to live off a budget. You had a budget. Dempsey even mentioned it. We've got people moving in, bringing revenue and taxes into this parish. We expect y'all to use that as your money, not to dip into everybody's pocket for a tax just to fix y'all's problems.
I used the example of failure to pass the transportation tax as one of the reasons why we, that was part of a solution. It was not the solution. It was a good ordinance. It was going to address particular issues, very specific issues in the parish. I voted for it. I was disappointed that it failed. I think it could have helped. The fact that we failed to pass it, I'm not criticizing everybody. I mean, most people I know are opposed to additional taxes. We pay a lot of taxes already. You're right. But I watch the council pretty well. I think they're pretty frugal with their money. I don't see a whole lot of waste going on the council. I think that was a legitimate effort on the council's part to try to get some help for our transportation problems. We're not going to, people want to move here. We're just not going to stop that. And with all due respect to Councilman Satterley, I'm not going to be the first one, after 4.5 years of approving properly done preliminary plats for subdivisions, I'm not going to be the first one to deny one because of the old master plan that we have.
Which subdivision do we pick on?
Yeah, which one do we start with? Is this the one we start with? I'm not going to do it.
And I want to question the master plan. Have we adopted the master plan as an official document that we have? I mean, we refer to this master plan like it's something that we normally follow, but we really just have the land development code, and that's my understanding, at least. I mean, we've never officially adopted something that we refer to.
Any new comments? Anyone who has not had the opportunity to address this floor? Let me say something as chair of this commission. In January, when I assumed the responsibility as chair, I spoke during the session for chairman's comments. And one of the things I stated was, at some point, I would ask, we consider maintaining capacities, stress levels of our infrastructure, utilities, and ecosystem. Because this environment is growing. I'm originally from New Orleans, retired from U.S. Army Corps of Engineers after a 40-year career. I can tell you the areas in Metro New Orleans that grew too fast for supporting infrastructure, whether utilities, roads, you name it. At some point, and I made the suggestion, at some point we need to educate this environment for everyone to understand we're going to pay somewhere, be it taxes, impact fees, you name it. If we don't start considering maintaining some capacities and levels of stress, we're going to pay. Every now and then I get to hear some subdivision has raw sewage backing up the environment. That being said, this is another opportunity to reach out to whatever entity to consider we need to maintain those capacities, whether it's the bridge, the infrastructure, utilities, ecosystem, you name it. Ascension Parish is growing. There's a major reason why. It's in between the two largest dollars in this state, New Orleans and Baton Rouge. The number 2 school district in this state. So people are coming. As planners, developers, all of us, we need to consider something to plan in advance and not let's continue to award contract for development and growth without the consideration for the stress loads, because it's coming. That's my spiel. I I've been advised, obviously, not to consider going back to people who addressed this floor time and time again, because this is timely. We're trying to consider all of the comments from those who've not had the opportunity to speak. That being said, are there any further comments from anyone who has not had the opportunity to address this floor? That being said, public hearing is closed. I need a motion at this time.
I'll make a motion to approve the plat.
I think we have some,
I'll second the motion.
did we have some?
Yeah, they're still working on the drainage impact study, so I don't know if you want
There
to
needs to
include
be the
that.
contingency for that. Yeah.
With that contingency.
There's a motion on the floor to accept the proposal contingent on impact study with that drainage. And I assume that second,
You had a second.
Yeah, I second it.
with that contingency,
Discussion,
it's time to vote.
discussion. Discussion.
Does it warrant a discussion?
I just wanted to mention that. This is a preliminary plat. The developer has a lot of hurdles to jump for. This is going to move forward. There are some serious and legitimate questions that were raised tonight. Probably the most important is the legal access to the property. So this will allow this to go forward and see if he can fix these problems or not.
It's been motion and second. It's time to vote. All in favor of the proposal?
Aye.
Any opposition? So noted, the motion passes.
Now the exciting one.
No, I don't have a change. Okay. Item 10C, the Meadows at Oak Grove. Matter of fact, I might say the rest.
Still here?
We went and had dinner, came back. Mickey Robertson with MR Engineering and Surveying. You want to give a second for them to clear out?
Yes, please, please. Folks, we ask that you transition quietly so we can move on to the next item on the agenda. Please.
Oh, God. It's terrible. It's so greasy because it's like hot now.
Like this? Okay, I think we're ready. Again, Mickey Robertson, MR Engineering, here tonight to present Meadows at Oak Grove subdivision. Got three of the developers here tonight, Mr. David Law, Clayton Mitchell, and Jameson Chauvin. Can you hear me better now? Sorry. The proposed subdivision is 212 lots. It's located on the north side of Highway 42, west of John Broussard Road. It's roughly 70 acres. Of that 70 acres, about 53 acres of the property is zoned medium intensity residential, and about 17 acres is actually zoned MU2. With that combination of zoning, on the RM part, it's zoned for 3 lots per acre, and the MU2 is actually 4 units per acre. There are some other little more arduous uses that are allowed on the MU2. It's got some commercial uses, some apartments, some townhomes, stuff like that, but the particular development that we're looking at tonight is strictly single-family residential. So what I failed to mention in that spiel was that the total allowable density would be 228 lots, of which we're only proposing 212 lots, and they range in size from 63 feet to 83 feet, kind of depending on where they're located in the subdivision. Jumping right to the staff recommendation that states that the plat is consistent with all applicable codes and ordinances for major subdivisions. I think we've kind of heard that a couple of times tonight. But, based on that statement, I would ask for your approval, but I'd also like to address some of the other comments that are in the staff recommendations that ultimately, led them to not recommend approval.
One of the first principles that they talk about is public safety and increasing volumes on narrow, unsafe roads. The development that we're proposing is on Highway 42, which is we all know is in the process of being widened to a divided 4-lane highway, to increase the capacity of that highway. The future carrying capacity of Highway 42 will be somewhere around 28,000 vehicles per day. We're well below that level, even if we include our traffic. And speaking of Highway 42, we did do a traffic study. We did do an area-wide traffic study, looked at the intersections of 73 and 42, 42 and Airline, John Broussard, Ronald Road, looked at a larger area. As a result of that traffic study, we are building a turn lane coming into our development. It's a right turn lane. So if you're headed west on 42 out towards Airline, you have to you have to get into a turn lane to enter into our subdivision. There will be no left into the subdivision because Highway 42 will be a divided median when it's done. Moving on, one of the other principles that the staff report talks about is sewage disposal and inadequate sewer systems in the parish. We will be constructing a new sewer system for this project. Unfortunately, there is some infrastructure being put in by the parish on Highway 42, but I think maybe y'all are aware that it's got some issues with exactly how they're going to handle sewer treatment. Obviously, we would prefer to tie into a parish system that's there, even if it meant impact fees for sewer tie-ins, but that infrastructure is simply not there and it's not available, so we will be building a new plant that will be properly permitted through DHH and, properly maintained by, a company that does that. One of the other principles is soils, drainage, and infrastructure. I think it's important because, we don't run across a lot of these properties in Ascension anymore as we start to fill in some areas, but none of this property is located in the flood zone. All of this property is, high property. So, one of the principles of smart growth would lead you towards developing this piece of property for both of those reasons. It's located on a major state highway, and it's not in the flood zone. And as we continue talking about, soil drainage and infrastructure, we have prepared a drainage impact study. We do have roughly 8 acres of detention pond that we're putting in. The drainage from the subdivision will be routed to the detention ponds, and it will be maintained at pre-development flow rates. Our drainage study has been approved by the Department of Public Works. It was a conditional approval just on us getting the drainage district's approval of routing a ditch around our property. It wasn't anything that had to do with the drainage study. The other part of that principle was about managing growth. One of the things that I spoke about earlier was the fact that we are not maximizing the density of this property. If you look at a typical situation in a lot of other municipalities, the typical density for a single-family residential subdivision in a rural area is somewhere around 5 to 6 units per acre. Ascension Parish in 2013 adopted ordinances that did just that. They managed the growth by virtue of the ordinance, limiting it to basically 3 units per acre. Or in this situation, we did have some property where we could do 4 units per acre, but overall density, we're limiting ourselves to 3 units per acre. The final principle speaks about minimizing the impacts on individual property owners. Earlier this week, we met with just a couple of the residents along John Broussard. And, while we didn't have opportunity to speak to everyone that's here tonight, we spoke to a few of them. The meeting was very positive, and I think we reached some good compromises. And we'll speak more about that later, but right now I'd just be happy to answer any questions you might have. We certainly ask for your approval. Thank you.
It sounded like your traffic study was built on 42 being finished.
Yes, sir.
How much capacity, until it's finished?
Yes, sir.
What kind of development could the traffic support today?
I can ask Neil Schaefer to come up, but one thing I would like to mention is that one thing that we want to make sure is spoken about openly is the fact that although this is a 212-lot subdivision, if we get approved tonight, tomorrow we're not going to have 212 lots on the ground. We still have to get approval from the Corps of Engineers. We have to get a permit from the parish. We have to actually build the subdivision. Then we have to build houses, and we are building it in 3 phases, roughly 70 lots per phase. So we're roughly 1.5 years, 2 years away from the first set of houses even being there. So we feel like that's close to being, timed well with Highway 42, and we'll let Mr. Neil Schaefer talk about that.
That's important to mention.
Nick Ferlito with Neil Schaefer. So the capacity for 42 today, for a two-lane roadway, ideally you could maybe handle, 1,700 vehicles per hour in one direction. That's under ideal conditions. So with the way 42 is right now with the construction going on, I'd say you're pretty limited on how much additional traffic you could add to it today. It's probably getting pretty close to the maximum amount of volume you'd want to add to that two-lane facility with all the construction going on, to answer the question on existing. But like Mickey said, it's anticipated that this project will take several years to construct, and, we're anticipating that 42 will be widened in a similar time frame, that will have much more, double the capacity of what you have out there today, with limited access, which will add to that capacity as well.
Yeah, I do want to make sure that, I'm sure you're all aware that Highway 42 is going to be 4 lanes, but it's going to have a median. And it's going to be controlled access. About every quarter of a mile, there'll be a J-turn or a U-turn, so there won't be many left turns.
Is it a J or a U-turn?
I think it's a U.
Well, it's kind of a,
One and the same?
a U-turn creates a J-turn, that's correct. A J-turn is a combination of being forced to turn right out of a driveway and having to make a U-turn to go back the opposite direction.
So your development does not have, if you're heading east on 42 off of Airline, you do not have direct access to turn into your development?
No, they'd have to utilize one of the planned U-turns that's
Okay.
in the
That's
LA
important.
42
That's
project.
important to traffic flow. I mean, that's the
Sure.
reason that those are, that's part of that access management that DOTD is starting to
That's
enforce,
correct.
that policy. That's good.
Bob, how long do you think 42 will take?
Oh,
Will I be around?
Yeah, I hope to still be around. But 42's under construction for the utilities at this point, in fact, the construction of the sewer line. However, the road construction really hasn't gotten started too much at this point. So using 73 as an example, I think we're still looking at about 3 years before we're going to drive on 42 with all the lanes. I might mention the J-turns a little bit. The J-turns are, the purpose of it is to minimize the crossings of the intersection. Again, that goes back to traffic management practices. J-turns are an appropriate traffic management practice, but they do limit your access. And you either have to make an access to a J-turn and then go back and make a right into an entrance, or you go down to a signalized intersection or an intersection that has a full access and make a U-turn at that point. So, all of those are good traffic management aspects to be incorporated on 42, but they will eliminate or minimize direct access into subdivisions.
I think things like that are going to help eventually. That's going to be part of the,
Well, it'd be interesting to see. I mean,
Relief dog.
we have J-turns on Airline at various places. The state has eliminated a lot of crossover areas, created some concern, maybe still yet, but they do function.
I agree.
And so if you design them, I mean, they work. But there'll be no direct access into this subdivision from full
makes a
access.
difference.
I'll say full access.
The information that we did receive from DOTD on their scheduling, they're going to let the project in October, and they have funding, so, it's not waiting on funding or anything else. But the information they did give us actually is that they're waiting for the parish to finish the sewer line before they can let the road construction. So that's kind of a catch-22 there is to,
I actually thought it was all being done by the
separate.
same, one fell swoop. Okay.
Any further comments from commissioners, staff?
I might add a comment related to traffic. I hadn't seen the latest traffic impact study. The one that I received had the aspects of the commercial properties that Mickey talked about just very briefly. I looked at that very carefully and had made comments regarding that, which had generated a lot more traffic than what the subdivision would generate. So I haven't had an opportunity to see this, to really look into it. I have to tell you, I'm concerned. Right now, 42 backs up about 3 miles. I live on, down around Ascension Parish 929. At early in the morning, it's 7:30. I got traffic all the way back there from 61. You getting that? It moves, but as far as your level of service, it's an F. And when they widen it, it'll probably be a C. It won't be an A, it'll probably be a C. And because it's going to have, like Neil said, 28,000 cars a day on it. And that'll
the
probably
capacity.
be a level C,
28,000 is the capacity, not the volume.
not the volume.
Yeah,
But
that's
it's got
a
22,000 out there today. I can tell you that now.
I would suggest if you had a G or an H classification, it would be one of those.
Well, the other thing I do want to mention, I mean, we'd all like to have As and Bs for our road systems, but the truth is, rural areas like this really operate on C and D levels. That's not uncommon. I mean, it's not a catastrophe to be on a D. I'd like to all be Bs, but, or at least a C, but it's common that Ds. Intersections, if you give me just a moment, I'll give you a little brief synopsis on levels of service, and Neil can probably address this even better than I do. But at intersections, you really talk about time delay. You pull up there, and how long does it take you to get through the signal? On roads, you talk about traffic volume. If the volume's there, you can't go any faster than the car in front of you, even though they might be moving. So there are two aspects to level of service. And level of service consists of three things. It consists of the volume of traffic, it consists of the speed of the traffic, and it consists of the capacity of the road. Everything that happens are affected by those three things. We can't run people off, so our traffic volume is going to stay there or get higher. The speed of traffic will go down. When speed of traffic goes down with increase of traffic, level of service goes down. So the only thing really as engineers that we can address is capacity. That's why we widen roads, that's why we build signalized intersections, roundabouts, all the J-turns, all of those things. We're trying to keep the capacity up. And so it's an issue as traffic grows. We talked about more and more subdivisions coming on. You're increasing traffic, and as a result, your levels of service and your entire system starts going down. I'm sorry to take a moment to that, but that's kind of a general statement, and Neil can probably clarify where I've made
Why don't you just
mistakes.
change your name to Neil and be
I
done
think I'm
with
gonna
it?
get some new business cards tomorrow. No, Bob, I think you did a good job.
Thank you, Neil.
That being said,
Nick, I'm sorry.
Business card.
that being said, let's assume there are no further comments from staff or commissioners. At this time, open the floor for public hearing. Any cards? Anyone desires to speak?
Yes. Councilman Chris Lohr?
Thank you once again. Again, I said earlier, I've been living off this road, Highway 42, for 16 years, experiencing the same traffic delays every morning, as you just heard from Bob, and I think many of the people here in this room. And since I heard about the development, I've been doing everything I can to meet with the residents and hear their concerns, all of which I share, and I'm going to share with you shortly, as well as the developer and planning staff, to see if there's anything we can do to try to mitigate the impact proposed by this. So there's a few things, three things really, that I am asking that if you are going to approve this development tonight, that you take into consideration and make actually a contingency upon approval. The first and foremost, and what I probably got over dozens of phone calls about, and 90% of them were about the access onto John Broussard Road. I live on Van Broussard. It's very similar It is a rural road. It is not Bluff Road. It's a very different issue, frankly, because Bluff is a state highway. This road is completely unsafe. It's a rural road. It's not like to like. This subdivision and those homes and that area is nothing alike. So the first and foremost issue, I think, here is to make sure that we don't have that entrance onto John Broussard Road. It's unnecessary, especially with the widening of a 4-lane highway. And so I would ask that that be first and foremost a contingency. And in talking there's been meetings with the developer, with the residents, planning staff. I think there's agreement on that front to have that removed from the plat. The second thing, and of course we've touched on it all night, is the actual, and Mr. Bobbitt did a great job just now about Highway 42, and how do we stage this development so that there's not the impact beforehand? Because if there is an impact beforehand, it's going to make a bad situation that much worse, especially with construction. So I'd ask you guys to please consider, in talking with the developer, ways to stage the phasing of this development outright. And the third thing is the sewer plant. And I will, you heard earlier about the capacity. It's true. The line down 42 is going to go to Oak Grove Primary, and we are not going to have, that's already our capacity. So all this development, they're going to have to do some kind of treatment plant. And rather than doing individual package plants for each of the subdivisions, it would make sense from a larger strategic standpoint and improve things for the whole area if we could do a regional sewer plant. And thankfully, I will say this, this developer, Mr. Law, has shown in the past, and he's willing to hear that he's willing to contribute, and I'd like him to go on the record and say that. He's willing to, like the other gentleman did with that other developer, and say that he's willing to contribute to a regional sewer plant as his voluntary impact fee, if you will. I think that could make a big difference for the area as well. I realize I'm running out of time, but I just want to say again, think about the developer we had before on the Oaks and the Bluff and how his complete reluctance to do anything, even when citizens were willing to pay. That's not the kind of development we need. I mean, the fact that at least we have, some developers trying to, until we get impact fees ready, trying to mitigate the impacts, I think that's at least a little better, and that's the kind of growth we need. Thanks.
David Dyson?
Thank you, Commission. Thank you, Mr. Bob. You just added a lot of insight to one of our major concerns, which is the traffic side of things. A lot of people behind me are very concerned not only about the traffic, the drainage, the sewage, the schools, which we hadn't spoken enough about here tonight. I do think it's kind of ironic that we don't have an approved master plan. I think that's a huge issue. I also think it's ironic that you guys debate about whose responsibility it is. I understand as leaders in the community, you guys have a responsibility. I also understand our councilmen do as well. I think we need to work as a team, the citizens and you as commission members and council members, to fix these problems that we have. When you look at our area, the Oak Grove Hope Villa area, it's 4 square miles of dirt. Within that dirt, what we've done now in terms of approval, you guys have approved a preliminary tonight for Hidden Farms. You guys are now looking at this one, the Meadows at Oak Grove. You've already approved Maplewood, and you've already approved Oakland Crossing. You've doubled the density in that area in a very short period of time if you approve this one tonight. Now, I will say I was at a meeting with Mr. Law and Mickey, and things were good. We did talk through a lot of issues. In terms of the compromise, I am vehemently against moving traffic down John Broussard. Mr. Bob brings up a great point that traffic backs up past 929 on a regular basis every morning. Where do you think the people that divert off of 42 go? They go down John Broussard. It's a well-known speed trap for very necessary reasons. They stop people all the time. 80% of the tickets that they issue are for people that don't live in the area. They speed down our street. Our kids, our dogs, our livelihood is at stake here. It's a bad situation. It's a very narrow road, has very deep ditches, and it's not part of a general subdivision that we would normally use for connectivity, like you debated earlier in one of the earlier developments. So I do ask that you consider this. It is a way of life, but it is a much bigger issue than just traffic. That happens to be my soapbox tonight. And I hope you do consider, because the developer was kind enough to offer his opinion and to agree to take that connectivity off of John Broussard off the table. I do think that it's important that you guys look at all the issues, so I'm going to give other people a time to speak. But thank you, Mr. Bob, for pointing it out, because I think you're very influential here. And I do think these guys have a job to look at all the pieces of the puzzle and try to make the right decision. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Deneen Dudley?
Hi, I just wanted to kind of get up and reiterate what Mr. Dyson said. My issue also is with the connectivity to John Broussard Road. The road is probably about 18 or 19 feet wide. It is a very narrow road. It doesn't have what you discussed earlier, you know, the 27 feet with the curb and gutter or whatever that's standard now. The ditches are very deep. There is no street lights, there's no sidewalks, and there's no shoulders on the road. I have seen cars passing cars at excessive speeds. I've seen cars passing school buses during peak school bus times in order for people to try to get off of 42 and make it around through our subdivision to Highway 73, just to avoid the Highway 42, Highway 73 intersection. It's common practice for bus drivers to actually pull up and stop their buses at a diagonal so that they cannot be passed by cut-through traffic while our children are getting on the bus. The police do come. I am one of those people that calls them all the time because I live in the center of John Broussard Road where peak speeds are reached, and I can tell you people do get up to 60 miles an hour. When they're trying to beat traffic, they go as fast as they can. And they just don't have any consideration for the children or anyone else who's out there. As a runner, I can tell you I have been put in the ditch more times than I care to say. Thankfully, without broken ankles, because it is deep ditches, and people, when they're trying to get through, they don't care if you're running on the road. It doesn't matter if you're wearing bright orange. It doesn't matter if you're pushing a stroller with the 4-year-old. It happens. I don't think that adding access for 212 more houses, you know, with the math of just 2 cars per house, that's an additional 424 cars that would have access to our road. My own daughter was involved in an accident on a school bus on John Broussard Road because the road was simply not wide enough for the Prairieville Middle School bus to get down the road with another passing vehicle. I heard it on the radio that there was an accident. I texted my daughter and said, there's an accident with the school bus. And she said, yes, it's mine and I'm on it. So as a parent and as a resident of the street, that did not make me feel very comfortable. So I'm glad to hear that the developer is willing to maybe scratch the access to John Broussard Road. I do think that with the widening of Highway 42, it should be able to handle at least 2 access points. But we've also seen tonight that you've approved 2 subdivisions with only 1 access point, so we all know that's possible too, don't we? Thank you.
Holly Glover?
Good evening, Chairman. I'll start by saying I want to reiterate everything that's already been said tonight. I reside in Oak Grove Estates, living at the corner of 38384 Welsh Drive, which is adjacent to John Broussard. Everything that has already been said pretty much echoes my sentiments with regards to the traffic and congestion. But I will briefly, Donald, address being an employee at Oak Grove Primary, where I'm also a mom. My children have grown up going to that school after we left on Dutchtown Primary. Presently, my school, which I'm a member of the staff at, is at approximately double the capacity it was originally built for. We were originally built for 450 students, and presently we're a little bit close to double at that. The reason they came, the developers came to Ascension Parish, was because of the foundation, Donald, that you and Robert Cluott brought, you know, to our school system. And so the infrastructure has clearly not kept up with the pace of the development. Our schools are overcrowded because everybody's coming here for our wonderful school system, our roads, our drainage, sewer, and electricity, at least where we are. In Oak Grove Estates, we've had 6 power outages since April. I think it's because we just don't have the electricity and the update of the systems to meet the demands. We have 92 homes presently being proposed, and I think it's actually going to be developed off of Oakland. That, along with these two proposed developments, are going to increase traffic also in front of my home, which, on John Broussard, which was already echoed by the previous speakers. John Broussard, the posted speed limit's 25, which drops down to 10 right before the bridge. On any given day, we can call the Ascension Parish Sheriff's Office and ask them to come out, run radar, and they'll ticket 17, 18 people. So I appreciate y'all considering denying access to John Broussard due to the infrastructure there, but also take into the impact on the schools too. Thank you, Donald, and thank you for your work too.
Well, if I could make a comment real quickly. During my 4 years as superintendent, we built and opened 6 schools. We did as best we could, but it wasn't enough. The school board now, I think, is going to put a bond issue up next spring to build maybe about 6 or 7 more, and that will just barely keep pace with the growth. It's a difficult thing, but the school board is working very hard to do that.
As fast as they build these houses, they're putting sold out signs on houses, on neighborhoods right now. As fast as they build them, they're selling.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
A couple of people have said the developer agreed not to have access on John Broussard, but I never heard the developer say it. Could we get confirmation of
Yeah, our
that?
plat shows.
I can attest that we were there Monday night. We did not have Neil Schaefer with us, but we were there. And we did agree that we
did.
would eliminate the connection to John
Okay,
Broussard.
thank you.
And I would say thank you for trying to work with and being
Not
a
a
good
problem.
neighbor moving.
And if you'd like to see a plat that reflects how that would look without, I certainly have copies.
I just
that
want to
can-
make sure that they heard
They
you
agree.
say that, that's
Right.
all.
Yeah,
Thanks.
thanks for working with all the neighborhood, the people
No problem.
around.
The one thing we do want to mention, though, is that working with the CAO's office and Mr. Ken Dawson's office and talking about the regional sewer, we wouldn't want it to be a conditional approval that a regional plan is built. We don't mind working with them and trying to get to that. But obviously, we have, at some point, we have to build a sewer plant and take care of our sewer. If the parish can't, is that making sense, that we don't want to be tied to having to build a regional plant that could end up miles away from us and, not be available for when this development's done? So again, like I said, we're certainly still working with the parish. We'd love to contribute to that effort, whatever we can do to help further
Is
that
that something
along.
that could be discussed further when the final approval is done?
Right.
At that point, we'll have a better idea, maybe?
Right. Yes, sir.
Have
Thank
you,
you.
have you agreed to, or tentatively agreed to some impact fee per lot or something yet? Have
No,
y'all
sir.
gotten to
We're building a right turn lane out on Highway 42. And we're, like I said, we're taking care of our sewer.
In lieu of fee?
No, yes,
per
sir.
lot?
Yes, sir.
Well, while you're up,
Oh, sure, no problem.
Go away.
what about the thought of staging, maybe, slower development of the actual selling of the lots or houses,
Right. Well,
to
one of the
catch up
things-
with the highway?
Another one of the things that we did discuss with the folks that were there on Monday, and we've provided it to Councilman Lohr's office, and, we don't mind it being in the public record, is that we are planning on doing 3 filings. With just built into the construction of a subdivision is a year and a half to 2 years of, by the time you get the first filing done. So we feel like, that time frame is going to line up. Plus, we certainly can't have our development tied to a state project. Like Mr. Bob said, he hopes to still be here when Highway
only 5
42
years,
is
6 years,
widened.
7.
Right.
2 weeks,
Right, so, but, we do feel like, the schedules are fairly well aligned.
Well, reality is that people aren't going to be real attracted to your development if they can't get there.
They can't get there.
Right.
Right.
So chances are it's going to hopefully work out where,
Right.
as 42 is improved, you'll
Correct.
be staging up.
Yes, sir.
And Mr. Robinson, I'd like to thank you for mentioning the fact that we tried, that we made an attempt at managing growth with the 2013 subdivision regulations that we made improvements on, because that was an attempt to unintentionally slow things down, and it doesn't appear that it's slowed much down. As fast as they can build houses, they're selling,
I guess you could look at the flip side. If that hadn't been passed, where could we be? Those 10,000 houses could be 15.
I think uglier neighborhoods, yeah, who knows?
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
uglier neighborhoods, at least it's building a little bit
Right.
more of a community sense. But thanks for bringing that up.
Is there,
Thank you for
right
reiterating.
now, one other question. Rabbit Rush Avenue dead ends at Glenn Stevens' property, and that's between the end of that. And is that a possible future?
That is actually shown on the plat. I think it says future connection on there. And that
It
is,
says future connection going to the side. I'm not sure what that means.
well, that's because we don't own Mr. Stevens' property, so, you know.
Well, that's a good point.
So we're showing it connecting to the commercial property. You know, it'll be
So it's future
it could end
track,
up
not a
being a
park.
driveway, you know, connection. It's
Okay.
part of the original study that did include some of the commercial, talked about internal capture and,
Okay.
you know, the people in the neighborhood being able to walk and bike and go to the commercial property in the front without having to get on John Broussard or 42 or, you know, anywhere else. So it will be, it will
That
be a
may
connection.
come at a later date?
Yeah.
Okay.
Any further comments?
Ron Porsche.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. I think the traffic issues have been extensively discussed, so I will not elaborate on that. I'm glad to hear that you may remove the access to John Broussard Road. So I'd like to move on to a different topic, drainage issue. And I think if you see on your plat, if you look at Mr. Stevens' property, he has a 36-foot servitude, drainage servitude. And Mr. Stevens has probably been living on John Broussard before anybody. 70 years. So his big concern is drainage, because he's going to be on the other side of 42. And that particular ditch, I think it's called Deer Path Outfall, runs underneath John Broussard and then goes down towards the Dixon property. I think the request is that he has, and it's my concern as well, is that it bottlenecks in some areas as it goes towards Dixon. If we can widen that ditch, it would help drain that subdivision and may alleviate any problems that he may have, you know, with flooding. So it's more, I guess, of a staff question than, you know, Michigan. And that's all I really have.
Staff care to comment?
Can we widen that? I mean, can we?
Mr. Stevens came into our office and I talked to him extensively about this, and I told him a path to take to request that. It's through drainage. So I can't recommend that that be done. I told him how to get on the list to work on that, because we know that that ditch probably does need to have the capacity improved.
Okay. Thank you.
I might add just a little bit more to that. Due to the drainage impact study, we've verified that the flow that goes down that ditch now will not be increased as a result of this development. So it'll have the same capacity that it has now, understanding that it has its limitations now, but the water is going to be the same, or maybe even just a little lower.
I think it's
One CFS, 1 cubic feet per second lower. But
Very
not-
minimal, that's
not
what you're
higher.
saying.
Well, thanks for clarifying that. That's a lot of concern people have.
Marvin Stevens.
Marvin Stevens, thank y'all for having me. What I'm here for tonight is not to stop the subdivision, it's the drainage. Because I'm backed up to the point and I have a 36-foot certitude runs through the middle of my property. And if those houses are built, I'm scared I'll get flooded. I'll have to buy insurance, which is just as bad. And if I ever decide to sell, they would, first thing they'd ask me, are you in the flood zone? And I'd say, yeah. Then my house would never be sold. So that's why I'm here, to talk about that. And the only time I had water in my backyard was during Allison. And other than that, I've been safe. But who knows what I'll get in the future? So that's what I like to control. So thank y'all very much.
Sir.
Thank you.
Gerald Ache.
Thank you.
most of my concerns have been voiced, and I think by the agreement to not have an ingress and egress on John Broussard has solved my concerns. Let me bring y'all up to what John Broussard is. John Broussard is 19 feet wide. I went down and I measured in 7 different places. It has no shoulders. The average ditch is about 3.5 feet deep, goes off the road at about a 45-degree angle. So if you run off of that road, you're in the ditch and you block traffic and you got to get a record to get you out. You know, you might say it's about 6 inches of asphalt short of being a gravel road. It's got a dangerous curve on it. It's got 2 90-degree turns in it. When it gets down to our subdivision in Oak Grove, turn left, everybody goes down Oakland, and then they exit at the corner of Oakland and Old Jefferson Highway. The bridge blindsides you on one side, a blind curve on the other side. I timed it at 45 miles an hour, which is the speed limit on the East Baton Rouge Parish side. From the top of the bridge, when you can first see, to the turnout is 3 seconds. No margin for error. And, you know, with the additional subdivisions that y'all have approved that are under construction now, without anything on this new subdivision, you've got about 400 houses that have to exit one way or the other, either to 42 down John Broussard or either to Old Jefferson Highway off of Oakland. So everything's backed up as it is. And it's not a matter of when somebody is going to get, or if somebody's going to get killed right there at that intersection. It's when they're going to get killed. So, you know, I'm not against progress, but the infrastructure in our particular area just won't sustain another big subdivision. It can't do it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Ben Faulkner?
I think,
Come up, step up, please.
he didn't want to speak.
I think you don't want to speak. We should let you go.
Yeah, I don't want to take any time that's not necessary. My concerns have been addressed, and it's pretty late, and I don't think anybody wants to hear me ramble on, so thank you.
Thanks.
Bill Bergeron?
I'm Bill Bergeron. I live on Deer Path Court, which was, will not now be affected because of their agreement to not put a road in there. But I do work for a major construction company, and I did have a chance to look at the plans for Highway 42 this morning. And there's only one eastbound and one westbound J-turn between John Broussard and Highway 73. So even without that coming out of there, there's still going to be a lot of traffic when the road is built, and it's not even been let yet. So it will be let later this year, awarded most probably early next year, and it must probably be a year, several years before it's done. But I do appreciate y'all's help. I know y'all have a hard job to do, and you did too good a job. Thank you.
Doug Hillingsbeck?
Yeah, I saw him leave.
I don't have any.
Yeah, I saw him walk out.
Considering there are no further comments from commissioners, no one desires to speak?
Can I say one thing?
The gentleman back there.
You got to be
I don't know if he spoke during this one. Did he speak during this one? I don't think.
I'll make it quick. Dustin Cornett, again, I think we're out of cards. One of the other concerns that we had talked about while meeting with the developer and Chris Floor was drainage. Most people that only have the drainage concerns are those that live on John Broussard across the road from this property, because all that cow field drains two ways. Down the ditch down the side of his house, and it comes down the ditch down towards Deer Path Court and John Broussard through them S-curves. We did come to an understanding with the developer that that is an existing problem. That's not their problem. That's there, and we have problems with it now. Chris Lohr wasn't aware of the amount of problems we had, but there are people whose either whole property goes underwater during a major rain event, which I'm not even counting a 25-year event, which they're counting, which is Allison, is worse than that. But we have issues with water at some of these points on the road. So Chris, he wasn't able, but can you give him the rest of my time to maybe come up with something? I think we're a year and a half, 2 years away from a house. So is it reasonable to say before we build some houses, we take care of these issues for the residents that have these drainage issues, rather than saying, Mr. Stevens, go fill out your permit, and hey, you go out your permit. Let's get the drainage people to come down that road, because you have culverts this big, this big, this big, and they're all 100% plugged, three-quarter plugged. Water don't go nowhere. You still got water in the ditch. It ain't rained in 3 or 4 weeks. It's 100 degrees. It should all be dry. You know, so let's let Chris spearhead our parish and taking care of what they're supposed to be taking care of before we add this in there.
Okay.
I'll be brief. I just want to say I absolutely am committed to improving the drainage in that area. I took pictures of it after that day about some of the specific culverts they're talking about. It's a problem not just there, all over this parish, obviously, when you've got, it's a maintenance issue, and we need to do a better job. There's crushed culverts everywhere. We need to have people being proactive instead of reactive on the drainage front. And I assure the residents in this area I'm going to do everything I can, and certainly hope at another level to be able to do that, to really ramp up our drainage maintenance in particular. Thanks.
Thanks, Chris.
Close it up. You know,
There's a lady in the back.
is there someone desire?
Yes, ma'am.
Step up, please, ma'am.
Hi,
Hi.
I'm Donna Sprunk. I've lived on John Broussard for 20 years. I have a quick question. How binding is his word that he will close John Broussard off? Because he's got to save my marriage. Because my husband used to leave for work. He owns a company in Plaquemine. He used to leave, I'm not kidding you, at 6 in the morning. The heavier the traffic got,
Earlier.
the later he stayed home. 9 a.m. is the limit now. So I need your word that this man is going to go put in a full day's work. So how binding is that?
Very bonding.
You sure? Who's the
Or
developer?
approval.
He stated for the record.
Or approval will
Help
be
me,
stated.
please. For God's sake. Thank you.
Thank you for the laugh. We needed that to wake us up.
Poor guy, never got.
I see no further hands for comments. That being said, at this time, we close the floor for public hearing. At this time, I ask for a motion from commissioners.
I move for approval contingent on John Broussard being closed off.
There you go.
Motion, can I get a second to the
I'll
motion?
second.
There's motion and second for approval contingent on closing of John Broussard
Access point.
as an exit.
Well, and I think, I want to, before we vote on this, we've seen 3 subdivisions in a row. The first one, and all of them, I think we're bound to approve. The first one, there was really seemed to be a lot of animosity between the homeowners and the developer, and not a lot of progress working with it. The second one, they closed off John Broussard in response to that request. They're paying impact fees when they didn't have to. And this one, again, they're being responsive, and it's good to see that our parish leadership is actually working with the developers to try and address the concerns that we can't address. And so I want to commend Chris for doing that, and commend the developer for also trying to work on trying to make this palatable for everybody and address their concerns. I think this is a good progress and good growth.
Here, here.
It's been motion and second. It's time to vote. All in favor of the proposal?
Aye.
Aye.
Any objection? So noted, the motion passes unanimously.
Tell your husband he has to leave at 6. Stand up. They're on TV. They don't want to know what's going on.
Well, Donald, you're getting to the age where this is about time you eat breakfast, right? Because you go to bed at 4.
Hey, Jack, you're breaking the other record.
Well,
You can have both ends.
no, Maury Clown, he trounced me with that.
It's hard, it is, it's tough. We're facing some serious issues.
This is gonna be.
Even maintain the status quo is almost impossible. Thank you, sir. Thank you for telling us.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you. Nice seeing you. Thank you.
Folks, please transition quietly so we can move on to the next item on the agenda. Yeah,
I think he's coming up real quietly to just.
item 11A, Keystone of Galvez. Now, do I need to recuse myself? My daughter built a house in Keystone. No. It's gonna be simple.
Unless she is developed, is you there?
No. Thank you.
Anybody even here for this one? Everybody's leaving.
Doesn't look like it.
Not too many. Billy Aguilar.
The 3 subdivisions were there.
You just let me know when you're ready.
We're ready.
All right. My name's Derek Murphy with Quality Engineering and Surveying, representing the Keystone of Galvez LLC on Keystone 7 and 8th filing, the final plat approval. We're going to keep this short, simple, and sweet. Before you, I've given y'all each
Excuse me for a minute, Sam. Folks, please.
Yeah, they were just hanging out.
We'd like to move on with the agenda. Please transition from the room quietly.
Go for it, Derek.
What I've given y'all tonight is a letter just outlining the staff comments and the response to those. Just real quick, number 1 was about a sidewalk. It has been constructed. Number 2 is about landscaping inside the cul-de-sac. I'll kind of put that together with number 3, which is about the trees. Right now, it's obviously really hot. Planting the trees, they're all dying. So DSLD, which is the home builder out here, has contacted Mr. Compton. Also have an email in here that they're going to plant, they've asked to plant the trees before November 30th, 2015, which still leaves the parish an out because of the COs and the permits given on there, because it just makes sense not to plant them right now. Looking at, so that's that comment about the landscaping. Additional items, talking about the commercial development, we obviously understand that the final development plan, the concept plan, and the developer's agreement controls that piece of property. And as soon as that gets developed, we'll be under that jurisdiction. Number 2 on the additional items talks about the 2.7 acres of land east of tract CH1 that must be donated to the parish prior to final plat approval. With this, you'll see I've actually basically given y'all an active quitclaim deed, which legal now has. And we're actually going to be donating 6.96 acres when it's all said and done, which includes the neighboring pond. Just because we've been working with the homeowners, working with the parish, and working with the recreation department, and we came up, they want to stock the pond and things like that, and make it an amenity for the recreation area. Number 3 and number 4 also talk about the The commercial development, same thing there. We know we controlled by that. Number 5, I guess, is possibly the biggest thing on here. The actual developer's agreement talks about the developer constructing items inside the recreation area. We've been working with the parish council, councilman in that area, recreation department, also the residents of that area. And we actually have a letter from the owner. What we'd like to do is just write the $50,000 check to the parish, because they can stretch that dollar a lot more than we can if we were going to build it. Plus, from my understanding, there's additional funding available that could be contributed to that recreational area. So we'd like to hand that over to the parish and let them work with the citizens. We're actually going to help work with them as well. So as a stipulation on the developer's agreement, we're asking you tonight to approve us writing just a monetary check versus doing that construction, part of that. And from my understanding, no one has an issue with that. I mean, it's a $50,000 check versus us building something. The other thing is talking about the punch list. The construction punch list was re-inspected this morning and fine. As-built drawings, engineer certification, required testing has been provided. They're still under review. And the maintenance bond information will be provided before the signing of the final plat. And the owner does understand that he has to write a check for $104,400 prior to the final plat being signed for his traffic contribution as part of the developer's agreement. We're asking tonight with all this to ask for approval on Keystone 7 and 8th and move forward.
Staff comments?
I'm going to leave the engineering comments to the engineer present. The remaining comments that we had, I believe, have been satisfactorily addressed. You know, I accidentally graduated with a degree in landscape architecture. I don't consider myself a tree hugger, but it saddens me greatly when I see these beautiful trees that have been planted that the homeowners are allowing to just die. They're withering in the ground because they're not being watered. And I think that the developer delaying or postponing the planting of the rest of these trees to maybe a time when we're going to have a little cooler temperature and maybe a little more rainfall, so maybe a few more of these trees will survive, I'm okay with.
And you're good with the $50,000 check?
You know, it's one of those things that the developer's agreement said they were going to do this, that, or the other. The developer has been in multiple discussions with the councilman in the area and the recreation director, and they would prefer this. I'm not going to try to step into their park and play with their toys. So if they want cash and more land, I'm not going to argue.
Are we able to make that change to the developer's agreement? We're going to make the recommendation to accept it like that, or make
I
that
think
change?
it probably falls under an or equal provision. You know, I think if he was trying to offer 30,000 instead of 50, that would probably be something you don't have the authority to do. The developer's agreement says he's going to build, I believe it's 40 up to 45, or 45 minimum up to 50.
Right.
They're offering to just pay us 50 and let the parish do what we want to do. To me, that's pretty much an or equal.
Okay.
And the deal with that is, you know, the parish has certain, you know, tax exempt, there's things like that. There's ways to stretch that dollar. So, and that's the whole premise about it. Let's give the citizens more. Let's
I
give
agree.
them the best we can, and that's what this is about.
Wait, I thought you were a tree hugger, Ricky.
Only big trees.
I'm disappointed. I don't know.
Engineering report.
Just big trees.
Any comments, further comments from commissioners?
Well, I think engineering,
There were also engineering issues also. We still have a few items left on the punch list that are not cleared up. They're small and as-built. I just sent him comments today, which I'm sure he could fix quickly.
Yeah, we've given them all.
And then there's some back and forth with the bond. I'm not sure where we stand with that, but I think that we're okay with a contingent upon these items being resolved.
Any further comments, commissioners? That being said, this time, open the floor for public hearing. Any comments, any cards? Considering that, closing the floor for public hearing, I need a motion.
I'll move for approval.
Now, how do we state the contingency, though? I mean,
With the 50,000.
Well,
well, I mean,
I'm not sure it's a contingency.
No, he's
think-
made
or
that
can we
offer.
just, yeah.
He's made that offer. That's part of the proposal. Am I correct?
But there's also
The
What we
punch
would
list, though,
like
that's
is
gotta be on there.
contingency, approval with contingency that the developer and the staff agree on the remaining items related
Outstanding
to
items.
construction.
So stated.
There you go, yeah.
There you go.
That is the
Yeah,
motion, am I
second
correct?
it.
That's my motion.
It's been motion and second. Time to vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Appears to be no opposition. The motion carried unanimously.
Thank y'all.
Good presentation, it was nice.
What else?
Item 12A, ordinance for public hearing to recommend approval or denial Parish Council amendments. This is ordinance DR 15-01, revision to the drainage regulations.
This is an ordinance I've proposed, a minor change, which just simply adds in a limit to the time that, a time limit on the amount of time that a drainage impact study can be allowed before construction begins.
This is what we talked about last month. You presented that to us last month, is that
Right,
correct?
I presented it
Yeah.
and
Okay.
said that now it's up for approval.
Public hearing? Yeah.
What-
Staff presented?
No, I
Any
think it's
comments
2
from
years.
commissioners?
24 months.
No, it's
This
2
time,
years.
open the floor for public hearing. Any cards, any comments?
It's 2 years.
This time, we close the floor for public hearing. Can I get a motion?
I'll move that we recommend that approval to the parish council.
I'll second.
It's been motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
So noted unanimous.
Over there.
Staff report, engineering report.
Nothing.
I'll save it for next time, please.
Said they're tired.
I move to adjourn.
Considering that, can I get a
Mr.
motion
Chair.
for adjournment?
Mr. Chair, I realize it's late. I would ask that next time we have a discussion on moratoriums of development. I know that the council is the one responsible for doing it, but
We can
we
certainly
could recommend it,
yes.
and I'd like for us to have a discussion about it. What does it mean? What can we do, not do, et cetera?
Have you heard talks about that anywhere, or this just came up?
Well, these
thought that
people
was
are
a
right
great idea.
in that we've approved a whole lot of
Yes.
stuff, and we don't have the impact fees done. Maybe recommend a moratorium until impact fees are in place, and that may help something.
And that wouldn't put anyone on the spot necessarily. It would just be a recommendation.
Yeah, I'm just saying, we ought to, I would suggest we talk about it. Just a discussion, not a public, just a discussion. Like a staff meeting, in public, though.
Let's go to a bar and talk about it,
Yeah.
if that's the case.
Can we do that, Lindsay? Thank you.
You won't
She's
be
not
here.
going to be here, so she's fine.
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't warrant
It's
a
legal.
motion and second, anything like
No,
that.
no,
Am I
I'm just
correct?
saying, I would like to have
Put it
that,
in the staff
for us to
report.
have a discussion. Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Since we're
Thank
so
you.
late, why don't we, adjourn this?
It's been motion and second
He hates me. He'll be glad I'm gone.
Thanks for bringing that up.
for adjournment. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, too.
Wanna go right into it?
It's been adjourned.